The following is a presentation of iRacing.com motorsport simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Live tonight from the Talladega Superspeedway, LSRTV. Happy to be with you to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the Season 15 Championship of the Superspeedway Cup Series at LSRTV and iRacing Live. Hello and good evening from Talladega. As always, happy to be with you for the voice of sim racing. Myself, Evan Pasoko, topside, going to be joined on the microphone by our producer downstairs, Cisco Scaramuza, who's twisted and tweaking the dials that are bringing us to you this evening for the fourth race on this championship. Drivers just
Alright, so it's going to be that kind of night. Alright, well, hello everybody. Appearance like Evan has just dropped off the face of the earth, so I guess you're stuck with me, and only me for the moment, while we try and scrape him up from what's ever left of the internet. And, well, let's talk about the race that we're going into tonight. Talladega, round number 4 on the season. Let's take a look at those point standings, because, well, why not? We got 3 winners up to this point who have locked themselves into the playoffs for this season of Superspeedway Cup. You see Brandon Cruz Monsiváis up on top of the board. Then you got Brandon Chaburko, last week's winner, and Jason Altmans, who won the season opener at Daytona. Those 3 locked themselves in. Then little bit of a battle. You got obviously Chris Bassini way out in front right now. He's had a very good season, just not the finishes he's looked for to lock himself in. Look for him tonight in that number 1. Then you got Spencer Crete, Rodney Wofford, Corey Henry, a bunch of guys kind of all in this mid-pack. They're pretty close to each other. And then, of course, that cut line, Alex Hallinar right now currently in based on points. And Daniel Holloway right outside that group. And as we welcome back, Evan, from the exodus of the internet, Gary Champion is also right outside that door with Paul Servant not too far behind him. That's what the point standings look like coming into tonight, Evan. But we're back at the bigger of the 2 tracks on the schedule, Talladega, or 3 tracks, I should say, but nonetheless, Talladega. The widest, probably one of the easier ones to race at for the 3.
And you would think conventional wisdom says if it's a wider racetrack, it's a longer racetrack, and you've got more space, it is easier to navigate a car around here. The problem is you give these guys an inch, they try to take a mile, and oftentimes races at Talladega are a little bit more calamity filled than the ones that happen at the counterpart track down in Daytona Beach, Florida. But you're exactly right. We come into the 4th race on the season. 3 races so far to this point. 3 different drivers who have gone to victory lane. Now, it is still a long way away until we have to start talking about the playoffs, because that doesn't happen until the end of 13 races. So from tonight on, including tonight, we've got 10 races left until the playoffs. The good news for the drivers on points, and this is something that is not a thing in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, Cisco, because right now, as that season begins to wind down, people are concerned, drivers without a win, are they going to get in? The good news about this series is that there are going to be no less than 5 drivers who get in on points regardless. So we will always tell you every week that it's difficult to finish out races here at Talladega and Daytona. There's drivers who have been in this series for 4 years that have 2 career wins, some with none. There's drivers who have been in this series for 2 who are starting to get up to double digits. It's just the way it works out. We could have, filling up, in theory, that 12-name list, and then we would expand the chase grid to 17 cars. So there's always going to be, at minimum, 5 spots in on points. I would much rather suggest you go for the win and try to get the job done, but I guess that is some sort of positive confidence, I guess, to have as a fallback. But again, I think so early on in the season, a lot of drivers aren't all too concerned about that, and I think really everybody is focused on getting a win. Later on we get in the season, then they'll start to crunch those numbers.
Yeah, I think you're right. And based on how this series normally runs, Evan, we have to keep in mind that generally, like you said, these guys, you give them an inch, they take a mile. And for these guys, they want to win every time they go out on track. Even someone like a Brandon Chaburko, who you might say, well, he locked himself in, he can play it safe. Brandon Chaburko doesn't play it safe. That's just not how he drives, as will a lot of these guys in this series. Once they get that win, yeah, they might help out a buddy if it's coming towards the end, but they'd rather win that race themselves, Evan. And I don't think anybody's going to be staying in the back of the pack all season long, definitely in this series.
Yeah, and that's another point that kind of goes against what you would commonly think. You would think they've got the win, they've got no reason to go out there and push it, they're set, they're going to hang out. It's quite the opposite. They have that win, they are locked in. Winning, or rather, I mean, you get a win, you get a couple of bonus points. That's a little bit different, but finishing second place is just as good to them as finishing in 40th position. It doesn't matter, so they actually get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, they do, and ultimately you see that aggression play out, whether it's going to be with the guys out on the track or even off the track a little bit, as we've seen. But qualifying begin to run its way down. We do want to remind you, of course, because we have to bring it up each and every week, this is going to be a timed race. They'll race to the lap 50 marker. That's when the end of the first segment will be, and then, of course, from there on out, whatever's left of the 100 minutes in this session will dictate the end of this race. But that's then, this is now, and let's take a look at that LSRTV starting grid.
Going to be top to bottom 37 drivers. The best of them was with a 51.839. Paul Servin continues his masterclass at qualifying. He will roll from pole position behind the wheel of the number 3 Chevrolet. Joined on the front row by Mr. Daytona, Rodney Wofford, looking to get his first win, first points win, I guess I should say. Got a win earlier on this season in Speed Weeks. He will start from second position. Ray Rittenauer, no time to practice, but fast enough in queue to start from third position. He marks Mark Jorgensen Jr. off for that spot, who was third best at practice. He will start to his outside in fourth and make up row number 2. Another driver, no qualifying time earlier on, put down a lap at the last second, and inside of the top 5, a series veteran in Seth the Merchant.
And then Harry Tiller's going to start 6th in the number 69, Scott Warren. Apparently the paint broke this week again, so going to try and see if we can get that fixed during the race. But Scott Warren in that black and yellow number 76, or Manila, I should say. He's going to start 7th. 8th going to go to Andrew Berger. 9th going to go to Chris Passini, the technical leader in the point standings as far as most points, but doesn't have that win yet, looking to lock himself in. And Glenn Hedrick rounds out your top 10.
Series added behind the wheel of the Valvoline Chevrolet this week. It is going to be Rod Flagg in the number 11 position. Rod Evans alongside him in 12th. Our brand Gary Champion gets the unlucky number 13 starting spot this week to the outside of row 7. 14th position going to go to Alex Halladar. And we saw the driver, the number 27 with us 1 week ago. He is back in that Corona Chevrolet. It is Scott Fensterbacher in 15th.
And then 16th, the winner last time we were out at the 2.66 mile oval here in Talladega, Brandon Cruz Montevise, or should I say Lincoln, Evan? We'll get to that later on.
Yep.
But 17th going to be Victor Bartlett, 18th going to go to Jaron Haggerty, 19th going to go to Devontae Peterson, and 20th to Greg Hooks.
Continuing on, these times are still only less than 4/100ths of a second off of the fastest, but way back in 21st position to Michael Tozy Jr. behind the wheel of the number 77 with Dan Harrington alongside in 22nd. Tom Dryerlead will be 23rd tonight with Travis Brown in 24th and Wayne Cooper in 25th.
26th going to go to Sean McCarrick in the 52. 27th going to go to Daniel Holloway. 26th, Andy Kessler going to start 28th. 29th going to go to Mike Schultz. 30th to Spencer Priest. And then you got Tommy Hall, Justin Levine in that 32nd position. Then you talk about the guys in provisional land. Evan, Brandon Chaburko, Jason Altmans, Jimmy Coleman, Larry Camp, and Mike Thiel round out your 37-car field here from, well, it's Lincoln, Alabama, isn't it?
They call it Dega, and that's how it was commonly referred to as it. It is quite the racetrack. Coming in at 2.666 miles in length. This is typically the time where we tell you how many miles we're going to go racing for tonight. But as it has been all season, and as you continue to tune in on Friday nights to get used to the new format, as Cisco mentioned a little bit ago, it is a 100-minute timed event from Talladega. That clock going to be counting down ever since the drop of the green flag from the top of your screen. We are going to be talking laps early on because because there are stages, and stage 1 in this race goes to lap 50. After that, we race out for the rest of the clock, so we're going to try to keep you updated on what kind of laps we're running right now. The most important thing is the clock at the top of your screen, but the first objective, complete stage number 1. That'll come in 50 laps from now. The base car dives down and away. As always, we're happy that you're spending your Friday evening with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. Field going to be in the hands of that number 3 of Paul Servant to get this thing underway. American Ethanol green flag underway. 4th race on the season 15 Superspeedway Cup Series Championship. First time through the gears. 2x2x2 is a challenge for the race lead. Comes from the top side for the first time.
Yeah, top side starting to hook up already. You got Rodney Wofford up on the top side in that bright red number 7. You got Mark Jorgensen right behind him in the iRacing Live car this week for Mark. A little bit different paint scheme, but he's switching it all up. We saw him in the Exalta car last week, and he's back to the blue this week for that number 88. Down into turn 3 they go. Jorgensen up the top side, not making it work. Paul Servant in that Oreo Chevrolet in the number 3, doing a good job on the bottom side. He's got the 87 of Ray Rittenauer in tow as they come out of 4.
Typically, the inside is the place to be, but that 7 Wofford had such a good jump, actually led at the start-finish line the last time around. Lap number 1 and the bonus point going to go in favor of that 3 of Paul Servant as he led that time by the start-finish line. And you've got fast names up front, but you've also got fast names way in the back, so we'll keep a half eye outside of the top 15 as this race starts to work in green flag conditions to see how the likes of Chaburko and others are starting to work their way up to the field. Something else that's new for this season is a very limited fuel cell. Only 55% of the maximum going to be allowed, which means that fuel runs in this series anywhere from 21 to 23 laps, but not really any more than that. And that's a challenge because if we go green flag racing through this entire first stage, one stop ain't going to get you there. You'll be about 4 laps shy. That would be very interesting on a strategy front if we go green to that point, and they would have to see what kind of moves the drivers would make. Hasn't happened yet this season, but I'm sure will at some point.
Yeah, now Scott Warren looking to the inside here. You see the line up on the top side starting to form. The 69 of Tiller's going to jump up there. You see the 7 of Wofford and the 88 of Jorgensen as well as the 24 Berger. Those guys up on the top side. They started further up in your field, but kind of got freight trained to the back. Now Tiller going to jump to the outside, see if he can tow those guys towards the front as they head into turn 3. He's got a decent run right now on the leader of Paul Servant, but so far not able to make a whole lot of ground are those guys. I think they'll need a couple more cars.
Tiller continues to lead the outside. Is he going to be able to get a run from the 7 that time before? Maybe challenge Servant to the start-finish line. Doesn't look like he quite has the help at the moment. He's really going to get down on the door of Rittenauer, pinch him down, use the side draft to just stay even. But the inside has the advantage courtesy of 2 car lengths. 36 drivers did take the green flag in this one, all with the exception of the 51 of Jason Oatmans. Has a win this season at a Superspeedway 500. He's not on the grid, and in fact is not in the session at the moment. Doesn't look like he'll be making a start in this one unless that car gets on a racetrack a little bit late. If he does, we'll let you know. The 36 drivers took the green flag. All 36 still on the lead lap on lap number 4.
Yeah, and into turn 3 they go, and it's a split pack starting to form for these guys. Obviously, you see up in the front, that kind of group, it's about 8, 9 guys. No, it's 8 guys right now that have kind of split away from everyone else. Then you got a pack being led by Chris Bassini, that second group. You got Ramon Evans, Rod Flag, Gary Champion, Jared Haggerty, Brandon Monsivice, Victor Bartlett, a bunch of guys in the back there. That's your second pack, and they're really strung out single file, but the lead is battling with each other, and that might slow them down a little bit here, Evan, because they're going to be running a little bit more slower. And you see with Chris Bassini here, as he comes off turn 2, he's able to get right back to the back bumper of the DuPont Chevrolet of Andrew Berger. And, I mean, as for the 2 guys stuck on the outside, 3 guys, actually, Taylor leading those 2. I mean, they're very stationary right now, Evan, but they're not doing a whole lot up there.
And they might have some help as that DuPont Chevy goes to the outside, and Berger's going to join the cause. 3 drivers is all right, though. I think they're going to be able to fend for themselves, and in fact, they're challenging for the race lead. Tiller is clear to the inside, and we're going to have a new race leader at lap number 5. Well executed. The 69, I thought, would have had a better run the last time at a turn 4, but he didn't have the help from the 7, and instead Servant had the help from Rittenauer. That time off the corner was reversed. The guys that the inside weren't really pushy. The guys that the outside were, and Tiller going to go to the race lead. He gets the bonus point for leading the lap. How long will that be lived? Will not vary. Those three on the outside right back on it. Jorgensen gave it a push to Watford. Watford trying to hang tight, see if the 88 could get clear as well. Not going to happen. The 7 goes down by himself. New race leader, second lap in a row. Caution, a flag, going to fly. Big issues in the center of the quarter around Cozy.
Yeah, around goes Michael Cozy Jr. as well as Glenn Hedrick in the number 21. We'll get a replay on your screen and find out what happened to those guys, because it was way back in the back of the field. This is actually a pack towards the tail end of your field. See Dana Osborne up in this group. Let's see what happened. We got a bird's eye view, and looks like what happened. The bottom line started to check up, and not really sure. Oh, looks like the 9 actually got turned a little bit, and then the 77 checked up, and next thing you know, Glenn Hedrick is flipping over in his car, and that's not a whole lot of fun for either Cozy or Hedrick. A very odd incident to start us off here, but the number 9 of Devontae Peterson getting loose is, I think, what checked those guys up there, Evan.
Yeah, I think the 77 was trying to check up for the 9, and the 21, when you're on somebody's bumper, you can't see in front of him. And he just got kind of pushed into them, and the 9 was fortunate enough in his own right to not get involved in an accident himself, but then Cozy kind of becomes the pinball, and he actually spins up by himself. The 21 was okay, but the 77 bounced back down the hill so quickly, he then tags Hedrick, and you saw that car upside down and go for quite the ride in the corner. That thing is all but destroyed, and because of the damage that he took on, he wasn't able to drive that car back to the pit lane. The engine was completely lost in it, so he had to take the virtual tow to the pit lane, which may cost him a lap or two.
And also odd to note that Brandon Chaburko was a part of that incident. I see the snap-on Ford. You can see the orange number plate on there for the I-5 bonus. Not really sure what the 22 was doing there. I'm not sure if he just missed checking up for the wreck. We'll get a look at that really quick before we go to pit road. Oh, he tried to avoid it and got actually a little bit of ARCA brake by the 52. Wasn't able to get it locked down, and Chaburko just got run over. So early problems for the driver coming off a win just 1 week ago.
Yeah, the 55 tried to avoid, and I think there was a little bit of contact with Chaburko and the 42, where Chaburko really got on the brakes, and Chaburko swerved high, and the 52 was going high minus the brakes, and he kind of jumped up in front of the 52 and McCarrick, and I think that can really just be chalked up to two drivers trying to make a split-second decision to get around it, and could have been worse for both of them. They do get a little bit of damage, but a caution is out. We're slowing things down early here from Talladega. Again, you keep an eye on the clock at the top of your screen, counting down to the checkered flag tonight. But for reference, we're pacing at lap number 8 of 50 in the opening stage of this race. And you mentioned the I-5 bonus. Well, let's talk about that just a little bit. Those familiar with the series will be well versed. If you're just tuning in for maybe the first time here on LSRTV or with us on a Friday night, first off, welcome. But the I-5 bonus is a fun little way for drivers to walk away with a little bit of extra cash. If you finish in the top 5 from the week prior, then you are eligible for the I-5 the following week. And that means that the top 5 drivers being from last week's race, Brandon Chaburko, Chris Pasini, Harry Tiller, Spencer Preet, and Corey Henry, if they win the race the following week after getting a top 5, they get a $5 bonus. If nobody claims that, $5 gets added on for the next week. So far into our 4th week of the season, it's gone from 5 to 10 to 15 and now a $20 prize still unclaimed. So the drivers of the 22, the 1, the 69, the 72, and the 12 are eligible. You'll be able to remind yourself who those names are because they'll have a yellow banner on top of the windshield. $20 up for grabs if either of those drivers park it tonight.
That's orange, Evan. That's not yellow.
It's the same thing.
Sure it is, as my phone goes off. But nonetheless, we mentioned the I-5 guys. Well, one to note who isn't here tonight is gonna be the number 12 of Corey Henry. I'm not seeing him in the driver entry list. As we mentioned, Jason Altman's already not gonna be here tonight, so Henry not able to make it in. I think he had a work conflict, unfortunately for him, so not able to pick up that I-5 bonus is he. But someone who I have to note who doesn't have a win this season yet and has been kind of out of luck as of late, and it's a car that looks very different from how we usually see it, is that number 87 of Ray Rittenauer, carrying the colors of Rodney Wofford this week. Normally we used to see a Penguins logo on that car, Evan, but couple sponsors looks to have changed, and it looks like Ray Rittenauer has hopped on maybe with the DHI guys.
Yeah, he had the Pittsburgh Penguins car often, which allowed me to make some hockey chirps in there until they won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, so I could quit talking about that. And then he had the white car with the Racing Warehouse logos on board, and now he's got Race Fan Racing on board. Very similar scheme to what you're seeing in the 7 around the Wofford. So I would assume that they're working together, at least in some capacity. There's some sharp-looking cars, though. There's a lot of really nice-looking cars out there, and when we were going through the grid, I was just looking at a couple of them, some throwback-styled paint schemes and such to keep an eye on. Makes things a lot more fun, and these guys have a lot of fun as well, keeping their paint schemes up to date. Mark Jorgensen Jr. is back in what is the iRacing Live LSRTV car, but it's based off of the Microsoft paint scheme, I believe. Last week he had the Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Final Ride paint scheme for the Exalta car that'll be run at Homestead. So these guys keep up to date with it, making the cars look fresh, they look nice, and if they can park them at Victory Lane, it'll be just a little bit better. And I've always said, as we see the lights go out on top of the pace car, that some drivers have some superstitions around their paint schemes. Jason Altman specifically, somebody who's not here tonight, either runs a blue Best Buy scheme or the orange Geek Squad car, and that kind of went back and forth for a couple of years there. And I would always say that he had better luck in the orange car as opposed to the blue one. He always felt the opposite. So there is a little bit of superstition. Maybe if you don't win or you have a bad night, you change up the paint scheme for the following week.
Yeah, and it's also something to note, the 69 in Technicolor tonight, as I like to say, because as you mentioned, kind of during last season and during the preseason for this year, Evan, we saw that car in black and white, but he found the paintbrush and is able to put color on the car. So the 69 in bright blue out there, bright blue and yellow. That's a hard car not to find on the grid. So Harry Tiller enjoying that with what I believe is his face on the hood. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to talk to him about that if we get a chance.
He had the same paint scheme on in Speed Weeks, but it was black and white, so he finally got to the paint by numbers and kind of brightened it up a little bit, and he's running good. Tiller, one of the rookies in this Season 15 championship, accompanied by some other familiar names to LSRTV, but making their first starts in this championship. Travis Brown, one of them, Michael Cozy Jr., another. So that's something that is noteworthy, definitely, to see how the rookies, not rookies to iRacing, but rookies to this championship, are able to adapt to the racing style. Very unique. When you're out at a plate track, it requires a lot of trust. It is the pace car dives down and in. We get set to go back at the green flag racing conditions. This time it is the 7 Rodney Watford in control. Our pole sitter, the 3 is Servin, ends up in 4th position for the restart. Second time in a row. Outside better jump. Tiller to challenge.
Yeah, Harry did an excellent job getting off the line that time and trying to make a move up to maybe dropping to that bottom side. He's got a lot of help from the number 3, Paul Servin, and Servin having a great day thus far, but those guys just don't seem like they can make it work. They're going to need a little bit of help. It seemed like when a couple more cars, I think it was about 5, is when they were able to break that threshold that the bottom had on them. Once they had about 5 cars up there, that's really when they could start making moves on the front of the field.
And looks like that outside now starts to fall back just a little bit as expected. The longer way around the racetrack, especially with the cars aren't up to speed, just isn't the place to be. But I want to see how many cars stay on that outside. On that opening run in this race, it got as low as 3. And the outside didn't struggle as much as I maybe initially thought that they would have. But if you can keep that core group up there, the 69, the 3, the 87, and the 76, I think they'll be in a very good position to be able to keep up with it. And Tiller really controls this line. You can see him walking on those white hash marks around the racetrack and kind of splits this joint up into 3 lanes. They'll be fitting 2 lanes of traffic down in that inside line there. Just watch the 69 and that white line in the corner. That white line is the same distance from the bottom all the way through the quarter. So when you watch Tiller on that line, you can kind of see how he walks that car up and down the racetrack trying to play with the side draft.
And decides to jump to the inside that time is the 69, so certainly wants to make that bottom side work for him. Jump to the inside. Paul Servin, meanwhile, left out all alone, now going to drop in, and what on earth just happened? The 87 got freaked out by that car around, and it's Jared Haggerty in the 6. No caution, because that's a single car incident, but I don't know what happened with Ray Rittenauer, but he totally, I think, psyched himself out when Paul Servin came down into the lane.
And he kind of moved very quickly to the inside. The 6 was a little bit on the left rear, and that's typically something that would spin the front car out. But instead, Haggerty gets taken along, and he took out the pit road cone. So the good news for him was he locked it up. He didn't get into the fence, but I believe because he hit that commitment cone, he may get hit with an unsafe pit entry penalty. That would also be an excessive speeding on pit road penalty, and he would have to sit in the box for quite some time.
Big wreck in the back. It's going to be Dwayne Cooper around a bunch of cars around. More Chaburko. I'm seeing the 06 to Dryerling. Huge problems in the back of your field.
Yeah, it all started with the 00, as you said. Cooper was on the outside of the racetrack. The Don and the 06 were working with him. And an incident that wasn't all too different from the last one. Just instead of the left rear quarter panel, he was on the right rear. The 00 up into the outside wall hard. And again, when he bounces back down, he sends both the 9 and the 06 into traffic. And they both do a good job of taking guys out. DeMerchant gets hit by Peterson coming down the racetrack. And then the 22 machine at Chaburko gets hit by Dryerling coming down the track. And that was basically enough to block the entire track headed into the tri-oval. Not many drivers further behind that got caught up. Most were able to dive down to the grass or opt for the pit lane to get on by. But those drivers who got hit by the cars sliding down definitely made it a pretty large wreck with about 7 or 8 cars.
And I think we're going to ride on board with Glenn Hedrick just to see what his view of that was, because it looked like he had to go through and do some dirt tracking in the number 21. So we'll hop on board the roof cam with the Marlboro Ford here and see what he saw going through this. And you see that incident up to the top, and he's just got to, he picks that, and that was nearly really close with Sons of Merchant. But Glenn Hedrick, an absolutely fantastic job. Also, I think I see Ramon Evans going through pit road as well to miss it, but that was a fun ride on board Hedrick's car. I think he has a little bit of splitter damage after going through the grass, so he might have to get that looked at. And remember, he used his fast repair after that first caution, so maybe some damage repair for the 21, but that was fun.
To those who survived the wreck and those who were in front of it on pit road, race off for the pit lane going to be won by the 88 machine. Mark Jorgensen Jr. decides to go with fuel only after entering pit road in second position. Watford, your leader, onto the pit lane, did go with 2 right side tires. So that's going to give the 88 the top spot off of the pit lane. Again, drivers working what would have been close to 2/3 of the way through a complete fuel run there. Came down to the pit lane, but since this is the second of cautions, this goes, saw drivers on the pit lane, the yellow before that. So there's a handful of drivers that have stayed out to this point. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to stay out. Looks like Dryerling, Thiel, along with Hooks and Levine, Champion, Flag, and Monsivice, a handful of drivers staying out, which could relegate Jorgensen anywhere back at around 9th or 8th position come the restart, despite winning that race off of pit road.
Yeah, and this is Brandon Cruz's MO for what he's been doing lately in this series. I talked to him a little bit last week, and for him, I mean, when we talked to him when he won his race 2 weeks ago at Talladega, he said, I'm just going out to try and get as many wins and to stay up in front for as long as I can, because that's where he feels he's good. And when he got caught up in med-pack, he said he kept running into incidents. So for Monsivice, it's a case of stay out until it runs out of gas, or until I'm forced to pit. So an interesting strategy by the 54, but now that we do have a moment, we can welcome in maybe a third member tonight. We don't have our English correspondent here, but it's okay because we can replace her with Daniel Eberhardt, who is very much not English, but it's okay because you actually drive these cars, don't you, Daniel?
Yeah, I do drive the Cup cars at Talladega, and it's pretty exciting to watch. You get 3 and 4 wide racing at some points here, and thank you guys for having me.
The good news is you speak English, so we don't have to kick off LSRTV Deportes quite yet. Then we're able to keep things rocking and rolling here tonight. Light's going to stay on top of the pace car that time, so we got at least 2 more times around until we get back into green flag racing conditions. If everybody has pitted now at least once, and having 2 cautions, I would assume that everybody's come down pit lane at least once, maybe a couple of drivers twice, Cisco, we should now be inside of a window, because we were talking about it at the top of the show that you would be about 6 laps shy on fuel to make it if that opening stage through lap number 50 were to go green. I think now if we were to stay green, we would be within a 1-stop window.
Yeah, we're going to be close to a one-stop window, and we do need to talk to Daniel a little bit and refresh the rules a little bit for the series. 50 laps these guys have to complete before they finish that first stage. After that, of course, it's left to the time left in the session. It'll determine how long that race is going to go, and Evan, that's going to be paramount for these guys staying out because they're playing to, I want to be in front when the stage ends, or I want to be in a case where I can come down and make that pit stop. Hopefully, maybe another yellow for those guys to make it happen to stay out front. But that's ultimately going to be what those guys are trying to go for. Everyone else maybe playing to the race end, not necessarily the stage end, Evan.
Yeah, right, and there's a couple of different ways you can look at this. We have seen, even though this is only the 4th race on the season, and in fact only the 3rd race of which has been under this new format, which will make up a little bit over 3/4 of the calendar total, we've seen some drivers pit before the stage ends, just as you'll see on Sunday nights with the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, and then decide to not go for the stage points and then to get the track position when everybody pits at the actual caution flag, to then get out there, and then they would cycle through to the front of the field. So that's something that we've seen out of these drivers as well, but it is very difficult to plan ahead, and it's unique, Daniel, to this series specifically because oval racing has historically, and this series for 14 seasons, has been on the laps. You race to Talladega, we do 94 laps typically to get 250 miles. The clock is winding down. There's an hour and 18 minutes left. We're going to be talking about laps until the end of the stage, which is lap 50. We could end the stage and have an hour left to go. The stage could end and there could only be a half hour left to go. So in very Superspeedway-esque fashion, it's very hard to plan a strategy because so often these races just turn into crapshoots.
Yeah, they can turn into crapshoots. As you've seen, there's already been 2 cautions, and what's bad for the 22 of Brandon Chaburko, he had to use his reset right there unless he's going to run in the back. So if he's going to run in the back, that's something he can choose to do, but you got to be choosy on how you run the race, and with it going to lap 50 like you said, and then they'll make a decision. It can take a long time, or they can go and click laps off right here, Evan.
And the idea would be, at least you would think, get through the opening stage and then race it out at the end. But whenever you dangle points in front of these guys, the top 10 getting points at the end of the stage, there is no way to guarantee that everybody's just going to take it easy. Looking for the lights to go out on top of the pace car this time, but taking this opportunity to remind you that tonight's coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on iRacing from behind the wheel, on top of the pit box, or the spotter stand, JRT is your go-to software for iRacing scoring and timing analytics. You can go online and get yourself the basic version or get a pro download today at joel-real-timing.com. With that, just as we were anticipating, the lights on top of the pace car go out and we get set to restart. 18 laps down, 32 laps to go in stage 1. The clock continues to wind down at the top of your screen, and it may sound repetitive, Cisco, for some of the people who tune in every single Friday, but until we really get into the bulk of the calendar, I want to keep reminding everybody about how these new rules are really going to majorly change how these races work. Under this format, we lose about twice as much race time under the caution than you do under laps, because if you go through a caution flag cycle, it takes about 4 laps. But on a timed, you're losing 8 minutes at minimum. This one might have been even more because I think we did 5 caution laps. So 10 minutes out of the race total, 100 minutes is gone. That's a tenth of the race gone under caution. So that's a good way and an effective way to save fuel for drivers. But again, the unpredictability of the time, the fact that cautions, you lose a lot of time, you can save fuel, makes it very difficult. If you don't have a spotter or a crew chief in there, it's pretty hard for these guys to be in the car and try to calculate all this.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of these guys, they'll be in groups on TeamSpeak to kind of discuss the team strategy amongst several different drivers, but not a lot of these guys have guys on the box. I mean, we're used to seeing Andy Kessler doing that for you guys, Daniel, but tonight he's out there in the race car. He doesn't have someone watching him from above. So Evan, as the pace car dives down to the inside, Brandon Cruz is going to take control of this restart, And once the green flag flies, it's all him once they get to the line.
Race winner this season. That one was his second on his career. Could he add to that and get a third from Talladega once more? Green flag flies as we get back underway. Challenge on the outside. Ron flag is right there in the number 10. Side by side through the gears to turns 1 and 2. Pretty even to the inside on the outside. Look for the bottom to try to stretch it down the back as we get him up to speed now to 4th gear.
Yeah, doing a great job as they head out of turn 2 onto the Alabama game, back straight away and down to the inside. That inside line is starting to check out a little bit. Ron Flank's going to need a little bit more help with the guys behind him to be able to make a run. It's starting to come now. He's got the 14 of Levine behind him and the 61 also of Thiel. Those guys trying to make it work, but Thiel's kind of a little too far back from the 14 of Levine to be able to make it happen. And Dan, you need to be on the back bumpers of these cars if you want to push them. That's the way this draft package currently is.
And if you want the outside to work, Daniel, those guys have to stay committed to each other. The inside is always going to be the place to be on the restart, getting up to speed. But you see a big opening to the inside of the 14. If he moves down, the 61 had an opportunity earlier that lap. If they move down because they're going backwards, then the outside's going to completely fall apart. But it looks like, and good news for the 10, is most of those drivers behind him have stuck with him. And now that we've gotten a lap under our belts, we're back up to speed, and the draft is really a factor. There's still enough cars on the outside for that top lane to make a run, and now they're still in a pretty good spot, even though that they fell back about 3 car lengths, already making that time back up.
Well, what you want to do is, what the 10 wants 14 to do is drag the brake to the 61. And what it does is gives the 14 lunges. It's like a lunge of draft that the 61 gives to the 14, that the 14 gives to the 10. So the 10 doesn't really need to drag the brake. It's the 14 that needs to drag the brake and go back and forth. He needs to hammer down the straightaways to get the 10 to draft down the straightaways to get the runs through the corner. But the 61 needs to be on the 14 when the 14 is dragging the brake through the corner.
Inside, got a little bit checked up that time at center 1 and 2. Dropped a couple of cars off at the back end of the 88 of Jorgensen. There's a big gap in between he and Tiller. And that 61 of Machida does go to the inside. So Thiel is going to give up the outside of the racetrack. He'll now be 5th on the bottom, about 7th overall. And you see when the car falls out from behind the 14 and the 10, they drop back to the 7 and the 24. Not terrible news because they'll get a run, but that right there is the problem. The 15 and the 88. Since that outside lane dropped back so far, the outside was open for those drivers up front, and all it took was Greg Hooks to slide a little bit to his right. Now he leads the outside charge, and all that momentum gets swung in his direction.
And it took me a moment to realize that's Greg Hooks, because we're used to seeing him in very different colors, but Rockstar on board with the number 15, a very graffiti-esque car almost for Greg Hooks. A new look on that car. I'm digging it, but he's digging it right now because he's up on the high side, and this is the first time we've been able to talk about Hooks for this amount of time. This season so far has not had the season that he wants up to this point, but running very well right now in this race.
See if that 15 can get up to the top spot. Once he went up there and looked like he was getting a good spot, a couple of other drivers also dove down to the inside of the racetrack. So again, it kind of stunted the momentum of those drivers on the outermost lane. Tiller still running in line on the inside. He's the 5th driver in line. This lead pack is about 17 cars deep. The top, there's only those 3 drivers on the outside. 61 pushes up a little bit and got tight. That's something else that the outside has to use as an option. They're not only working amongst each other to draft, but Daniel, they're also getting down on the doors of those guys that are inside and trying to side draft them. And that is where, even though you're at lap number 23 in this race, and you would think, hey, just don't get on the guy, side drafting is essential for the outside lane to have success. And that's where a lot of problems can come from as Champion goes bottom to top.
Yeah, and that's a heck of a move right there by Gary Champion right there to the outside. He can actually clear Brandon right here, and he can actually shoot down to the bottom, and then he can work both lanes. But like you were saying, the side draft is key. The lead guy needs to side draft the most. If he pulls himself up a little bit and pulls away from the 15 can get a bigger run from the guy behind him. But as you look behind the 15, there's really no help coming as the 3 of Paul Servants on the inside, and then you got Rod Flag that finally moved down to the bottom line.
The reinforcements aren't until you get back to the 76 of Scott Warren, and he's side by side with Andrew Berger for 11th position. So that group of 4, the 72 is also there, the 1 and the 83, they are coming. It looks like the 7 of Wofford even going to go bottom to the top, but he'll join the outside lane. So support is inbound. But by the time the 88 and the 15 drop back far enough to him, yeah, right there the inside, it may be just more of a viable option. Jorgensen second the last time by the start-finish line, now 6th position and on the inside. Now that the outside's there, expect him to go back up, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Kind of goes down to the inside line to act as his life raft so he doesn't fall any further back. And once the outside lane gets it back together and gets going, he'll jump right back up and lead it once again. Tiller thinking about the same thing. 69 going to jump out in front as well.
And that move out of the 69 is why Rachel always calls Harry Tiller the UK version of Brandon Chaburko, because that's a very Brandon Chaburko-esque move, being able to jump up and grab that draft off the top lane and be able to pull that line to the lead. And Tiller doing an excellent job of it right now, coming down about half a lane, and we'll get to the tri-oval here in a little bit and how that's a little bit different, but Tiller trying to pull that lane with him through the draft, and he's doing an excellent job of it right now alongside Brandon Cruz-Monsiváis. But right now the problem is it's a little bit of space back to Mark Jorgensen. He doesn't quite have the draft he needs. Jorgensen's got to pick up that rest of that group behind him, like what Daniel was saying, Evan, and be able to pull that group to the front, and it's working right now because Jorgensen is on that bumper.
The outside's not going to be there the entire time. If you get a run like this, like Tiller, and then you don't pass him, you almost get stuck. That's why we say oftentimes it's better to drop back a little bit, build that momentum back up. Drivers are headed to pit road, though. These drivers would not be able to make it on one stop, and Champion is spinning on the pit road. He won't get a speeding penalty as the Haviland entry comes to a pretty slow stop on the pit lane. The 54 of Monsiváis had to avoid him, so both of those drivers, not only does pitting by themselves really hurt Daniel, you typically want to be down with a big group. They decided to stay out, gamble on fuel, and didn't work, but having that incident on the entry is going to cost them that much more time.
Yeah, definitely, Evan. Coming down with just 2 guys, it's not going to really help you at all. As you can see, Brandon's already gone in a way, so with that big spin out of Gary, that's going to leave these guys really separated, so that's going to be more like running single car, like qualifying laps for a little while. But if you go back up to the lead, Harry Tiller took the lead as them guys went down pit road right there, and he's got the 61 of Mike Dial all over his rear bumper.
61 was maybe looking to go to the outside, but he will stay in line. And here comes the 88 of Jorgensen once again. Charge for the race lead. At 15 of Machida Greg Hooks, I have to wonder if he's kind of itching for his opportunity to go to the top spot. He was leading his outside line not all that long ago. Tiller went up in front of him, who's now the race leader. Jorgensen has done the same, and the 88's going to be clear, so Jorgensen goes to the bottom and leaves the outside open. The 15 tries to make a charge. Don't think he'll get there, though, by the time they get to turn 3. No, got maybe half a car length at bottom now, but the inside once again takes the advantage.
And what was interesting to see was the 61, once the 88 dropped to the bottom side, you could see him, he got a little bit tight once the dirty air hit that front of the grill of that Tracker Boats Chevrolet, and you could see him get a little bit tight. He wasn't quite on the apex where he wanted. Maybe part of that a little bit of a psych out by the 88 coming down into that lane, but more of it, I think, was because of the change in the air, because all of a sudden you have a lot more dirty air hitting that front nose of the car. That'll tighten you up a little bit as you go in the corner. And also the 61, that car doesn't seem very happy because he's all over the lane. That's not really what you need to be pushing. It's pushing you through the corner. You got Jorgensen doing a great job on that bottom side, but the 61, Daniel said he was all over his bumper, Evan, and that's not an understatement.
Yeah, and we've seen some drivers be a little bit more aggressive in the turns specifically than others. These Gen 6 cars aren't necessarily made to push all the way around a joint like this, and you take a look at the 2 incidents that we've seen so far as the 7 really cuts it close with a razor's edge, just enough space in the front and the back to squeeze in between Servant and the 10 of Flag to get back down to the inside of the racetrack. But the 2 incidents we've seen so far today, Daniel, have been guys getting on each other's bumper, not necessarily overly aggressive, but somebody checks up or you get a little bit to the right or left of that guy or not center, and it can hook the car right around without any notice.
Yeah, the bumpers don't really line up at all, so the rear bumper to the Chevrolets to a front bumper to the Fusions. It really doesn't line up. Even the Chevy to a Chevy doesn't really line up. So you really got to be careful pushing. You really want to get off of them in the corners. But at the end of this race, you'll see like everything amp up and people will stay on each other, and that's when more wrecks usually happen. But what I have to say about the 88 and the 69, they're two aggressive drivers. You have to be aggressive to drive plate races. If you're not aggressive and you're scared to side draft and this, that, and the other about going, you know, you got to be able to lean on that guy a little bit, and the guy on the bottom needs to be able to lean on you. When you can work both lanes on side drafting and even just right like how they're nose to tail right now, if you can work both lanes, you will be probably up front in this race.
And you don't even necessarily have to like each other for that to work. You just have to know each other. But that's where the challenge comes in for Tiller, who's into the outside wall. The 69 got all kinds of out of shape. I don't know if he got tagged by the 15 or what, but that car went sideways, went straight up the hill. And the point I was just about to make is that Tiller, a new driver, may not be that familiar with the names that are around him, and it's going to be difficult, more challenging for him to trust the drivers around him, more challenging for the seasoned veterans to trust him and to lean on each other. And just as I was bringing up that thought, the 69's up at the fence. He hit it pretty good. He's got some damage. He's still going, but he's dropped off the lead pack now.
And while it was a little bit of a tag there with the driver that was underneath him, it looked like a little bit of internet connection took a little bit of an ability out of that, so it was going to be messy nonetheless. But unfortunately for Tiller, it could have been worse. He could have been in the garage right now, but right now he's riding 14th. He found a couple guys he's going to ride around in the back with. You see the 42 of Victor Bartlett. Actually, the 69 going to jump down pit road right now with his friend Brandon Chaburko. I'm not sure those two would consider each other friends, but a big pack from that second group. They're hitting pit road.
A rough entry to pit road for Ronnie Wofford. He locked up the tires. The key for these drivers as they all commit as a group: Wofford, Berger, Piscini. You've got Tiller on pit road, DeMerchant, Hooks, Cozy, Preet, Chaburko, and I think that's just about everybody as they now come in and out of the boxes. Most drivers going with fuel only. You gotta leave pit road together. If you come out by yourself, you're in a tough spot. It's dicey getting off the pit road. Look at that, 4 wide coming off the pit lane. It's good, though, because those drivers are going to be together. They're going to be able to form back up another pack. They are just inside of the fuel window with 17 laps to go to the end of the stage, so this will be the final stop for them.
And we saw a huge puff of smoke. Problems coming down pit road. It looked like one of the Redline Racing cars up problems for that, and I believe it's the 87 of Ray Rittenauer had a problem. Got up in the outside wall. You can see the damage on the 87, so he locked it up. Not sure if we'll be able to get a look at that, but everyone else of that group coming down pit road. And also to note, Travis Brown was the big plume of smoke we saw on pit road just 1 lap ago. It looks like he lost an engine, had to use the quick repair there, Evan.
It was a strange incident. The car got sideways really before it even got down to the line, which is where most drivers lock it up and spin. It just got upset when he got on the brakes. Caution flag is gonna come out at lap number 34, just as drivers were pitting to complete pit stops and Tiller's involved. So the drivers who just got off the pit road, Mike Thiel also in this one, issues right in the tri-oval.
And we're gonna get an above shot of Harry Tiller there, because I was in the process of trying to find the Rittenauer accident, but we're not going to be able to get to that.
It was DeMerchant.
I'm not really sure what happened, but what I did notice, it was kind of through the tri-oval, so we have a little bit of a time to wait here to see what happened to the 69, but they had just come off pit road, Evan, and he had the 61 behind him, so I'm not sure what happened. Maybe some lap traffic coming into play, or traffic that's slow versus fast maybe coming into play.
It was Seth DeMerchant. He exited pit road with them, but he kind of pulled away a little bit. That group off of pit lane was in 2 packs, and the 57 had some rear end damage, so I'm curious if that had anything to do with it. But the 22, I mean, barely touched him at the back end, and DeMerchant just shot straight up, and the problem is he came back down. No way for him to get on the brakes and stop that, because the tires were off the ground for the most part, and when he comes back down the racetrack, he tags Tiller. Tiller goes up into the 61, and that's where those two drivers who we first caught spinning, because they ended up coming right down by the pace car as it was exiting the pit lane, that's how those two got collected. But it all started with Seth DeMerchant. This is going to be drivers who did not yet pit are able to come down to the pit lane, so Jimmy Coleman is down pit road. Looks like Dwayne Cooper on the pit lane, Mike Schultz, Glenn Hendrick, and a couple of other drivers, Andy Kessler, Shada McCarrick, Victor Bartlett, and more, all pitting, which will complete the cycle, and meaning that now everybody would be able to get to the end, to the stage on the fuel they have on board.
And Daniel, we were going to talk about that tri-oval there. It's not really tri-oval, the front stretch, I guess, as it were, of Talladega, because it's very bumpy down there, Dan, and you don't want to be bump drafting down there. And unfortunately for Seth the Merchant, he kind of got squeezed because Jaberko was pushing from behind, and Jorgensen really didn't have much of a run, and the Merchant had nowhere to go in front of him.
Yeah, going through the tri-oval, it gets really, really light on the race cars. I don't know what it is. It's just that it's kind of just like you barely move the steering wheel like at all going down through there. It's almost like driving a little bit of a left straightaway. It's not even like turning the car, but the rear end just gets light. But as you can tell on the 57 of Seth the Merchant, when the 22 of Jaberko was on his bumper, the Merchant had a little bit of damage on his right rear quarter panel, and I think that's what might have caught, on the 22's front end, because the 22 wasn't completely lined up with him, and I think that's what sent the 57 spinning, and Harry Tiller had nowhere to go with the 61.
Clock at the top of your screen just now with inside of 1 hour left to go from Talladega. 59 minutes, 40 seconds left on the board until the white flag is going to come out and we end this thing. But again, we're racing to the end of stage number 1. First time that stages, along first time with the clock being implemented for this season 15 championship. Points are on the line for the end of stage number 1. That also is replicating what you'll see in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Top 10 drivers at the end of stage number 1 get bonus points. 10 points for first, 1 point for 10th position, and inverted just like that. So 10 points, 9 and 8, so on and so forth as you go 1, 2, 3, and on back. But a couple of drivers coming in and topping off. That includes drivers who had already pitted the first time under green flag conditions. Harrington has some damage that he may be down pit road to try to get touched up a little bit. You've got Gary Champion back down pit road. Thiel's down there trying to get that car fixed up, but Devontae Peterson going to come in and top off and such. So this is an interesting point at which the caution flag is going to come out, because we're going to restart, I think, with 12 to go in the stage. If we get another yellow, you could see some drivers pit once again, and they would be 4 laps shorter on a full run, but we would expect everybody to pit at the end of the stage. And again, that's where you come into the decision of, do you value stage points over track position for lap number 51 on? And that's something that we can't tell you. It's always circumstantial. Nobody's going to follow the same strategy week in and week out. It's all circumstantial on what's going on. But a third caution on the night has slowed us down. And this also really changes the running order, because caution came out after one group had completed its pit service cycle, Zisco. The other group was in the middle of it, and there was a third group that hadn't. So Scott Warren was up there. He's now our race leader. You've got Paul Servant in second, Rod Flang in third, and Ramon Evans and Justin Levine were all in the mix. But then you got Scott Fenstermacher in sixth, and Hendrick and Cooper, Coleman and Kessler now inside of the top 10. So that really shook things up. Only 3 drivers who started inside of the top 10 running, top 13 now at lap 37.
And Scott Warren, unfortunately, the paint didn't load this week for him. It's an ongoing gag to find whether or not the 76 will actually have a paint scheme. Sadly, this week when he's leading, it doesn't. So, the saga continues for that. But nonetheless, Scott Warren having an excellent day so far. A little bit of luck going his way, Evan. And that's sometimes all you need to get to the front of the plate tracks. And if he can bring home that stage win, that'll certainly help in the points total and help with him trying to make the playoffs here. As we, it's like you said, it's a long way down the line, but I wouldn't turn playoff points down at all.
Absolutely not. And I would almost say, back to the saga of the 76 that you were talking about, I don't know if I'd find Scott Warren on the racetrack if he had some different paint on board, because so used to being able to identify him by that. I guess we're still not in agreement of whatever color's on the top of it. If it's a beige
vanilla.
or a vanilla. Vanilla's pretty good.
Manila, not
manila.
VM.
It looks vanilla though. It's got that little bit of yellow in it. So I'm gonna go with beige.
He sends me a paint, but then it actually worked for 2 weeks, and then suddenly it stopped working again. So I think I might just have to make him a scratch paint file or something like that to make sure it starts working. I don't know.
I'm going to have to take this opportunity just to say it. I'll say that it's easy to identify the 76 up front because he's one of the only Fords up front. Typically, it's Chevy. So I'm going to take that shot. I'm going to take that shot while I have it.
Yeah, Dan drives a Ford, so.
Yeah, Ford Fusions, they got some good ponies up under them, but I think I'm a Chevy to heart, but I love the Ford Fusions on here. It's the sound of them just sounds a whole lot better, and.
Well, and speaking of the Cup cars, too, we're going to have, at some point next season, with Chevrolet switching over to the Camaros. That'll be new on iRacing soon, at some point. Can't tell you when, somewhere into the 2018 calendar. We're not going to get ahead of that, though. Yes, but soon. We'll keep it like that. It's not a lie. It is soon. It's a fact. That's all I can tell you. Pace car going to go down this time as we get set to go back underway. As I guess it is going to be 12 laps to go in stage number 1. Playoff points and bonus points on the line for the top 10. Scott Warren's got a front row seat.
A great jump for the 76 there, but look at Paul Servin up on the top side. Great run for him as well. He's going to be even up with the 76 of Warren here when they dive into turn 1. Got a little more Ford horsepower up on the top side in Ramon Evans in the 83. But the problem with Evans is he's going to have to pick up a couple more cars, chief among which the 27 right behind him of Fenstermacher. He's going to have to grab him and hopefully be able to pull him along with him. Dwayne Cooper, who, if you remember, was involved in that big wreck earlier, also up there as well.
You see the outside sag back by those 2 or so car lengths, but I'm expecting this to be a lot bigger of a lead pack. On that last restart, we had side by side, top 12, top 13 or so, and then a lot of single file. These drivers know they can now get to the end of the stage. This may be just as aggressive as a push to these next 11 laps is what we'll see at the end of the night when the checkered flag is on the line, because bonus points could be everything, and with at least 5 positions guaranteed into the playoffs on points, aside from everybody who gets a win on the season, points are critical. And yeah, it's a long way to the playoffs, and we even said that at the top of the show when we were talking about points. Still 10 weeks, don't want to look too much into it, but there's no reason for you just because it's lap 4 to not care about the playoffs. You gotta maximize points. Sure, you're planning on getting a win, but you cannot rely on a win to get the job done, and we've seen a couple of drivers stay out under caution flag cycles, and so even to just get that 1 bonus point for the end of the lap, so that tells you just how critical those can be. Surprised the outside's not up there quite yet. Servin had a good jump, 2nd lap now complete off of the restart. They're still back by a car length and some. They've got the support though. They can get it hooked up, might have a run at it too.
They might have to run, but Evan, they got to make sure they can stick together. As Dan talked about earlier, you have to make sure you have that group with you if you're going to make it work. One to note for the outside, Mark Jorgensen Jr., after all the shuffling of the field, he's made his way already back in the top 10. That 88 Chevrolet doing an excellent job right now up on the top side and trying to get to the back bumper of the Ford of Dwayne Cooper up there. And we're riding along with the 88 because interesting view from him. He's got a little bit of a gap to the 00, so you have to wonder, is Jorgensen going to make it work on the outside, or is he going to try and stay on that inside and hope everything shuffles his way? I think, though, if it's Jorgensen, he's going to make it work on the outside.
Yeah, Jorgensen is a fan of that, and the outside is really the passing lane at Talladega, Daniel, because, I mean, on the inside, it's hard to go anywhere. If you're that 76 of Scott Warren, you got the 3 in front of you, the 83 next in, the 10 behind you. Now, if the outside drops back, you can jump up and take over that lane, but other than that, if you're 3rd or 4th in line on the bottom, it's hard to do anything.
Yeah, as you can see, the caution comes out, but as the caution comes out, Paul Servant actually took the lead right there in the Oreos Chevrolet, but we're going to get that replay up for you right here in a second for the wreck that just happened here down at Talladega.
It looked like it was the 82 Cisco Dan Harrington. A very similar incident to a couple of the ones we've seen so far tonight. Pushing in the corner, especially off of the corner. Car gets really light as it unloads from being pressed down on the racetrack at a corner to the straightaway. It starts to come up a little bit, and he just got hooked, and Harrington into the outside wall. Luckily, nobody else got hit in that one. A lot of drivers had to go high and low, and we had a couple of really close calls. Somehow, that one remains one. Yeah, at least 3 drivers were within probably half a foot of ruler of him.
Yeah, we're going to jump on the roof cam of the 57 of Seth the Merchant, the Coca-Cola Chevrolet, because that was also very similar to the encounter he and Glenn Hedrick had earlier. And this is going to be fun. Yep, you see the 82 go down. Seth looking for it. He lost a little bit of traction, able to make it by on the apron. But, Dan, I'll go to you on this one. That apron is very slick because no one runs down there. There's no grip down there. None of the rubber, rather, has been able to go down there. So that car, no banking, no grip. It's not fun if you get sent down to the apron.
Yeah, it's not fun at all. And picture coming up the speed out of pit road right there. It gets really sketchy. And usually you come up before, if you're allowed to, you come up before the entrance of turn 1. But going through the apron, it can get real bumpy. It can get going anywhere. Like, you don't know what's down there, just how it's built and how laser scanned it is. We all know in real life racing, when you hit the apron, it's really bumpy down there. They'll go jumping down through there. Like, if you take Pocono, for instance, if you remember the Kyle Busch Ryan Blaney battle, going down the Long Pond straightaway, they actually went down all the way to the apron. He was just jumping through there. There are bumps down there that will upset the race car and bring it up off the ground. So Seth made a good move going down to the apron.
So we were talking a bit about the pit strategy in this thing, and I'll go right back to you, Daniel, on this one. I would think in a super speedway series that track position would mean less than at an intermediate racetrack. And sure, it's good to start up front. Paul Servant started on pole, and he's leading this race. It's been a lot easier of a night for him than Justin Levine, who started 32nd and has had to pass 27, 28 cars to get to 7th position at the moment. But this caution is going to be right before the end of the stage because we're pacing at lap number 44, and after lap number 50, the caution's going to come out. That'll be the stage, and stage points are going to be awarded. At an intermediate racetrack, really any other track but a plate track, and that's all we do on Friday nights, I would think that this would be when drivers would come down to the pit lane, get fuel. They're only going to be 4 laps off cycle, and then when everybody pits after getting the bonus points, you get up front and you are in control for the final race to the end. Do you think that that still applies here, or would you rather get the points and then fall back a little bit into the pack? Because 16th position, I mean, it's not the best place to be in. I would much rather be leading the race than in the middle, because that middle is where all the chaos breaks out. But I think at Talladega, a place like this, a track wide as this one is, much wider than Daytona for comparison, would be easy enough for a seasoned driver to be able to find their way back up.
Well, it just depends on where you are in the standings. What are you looking at? Are you looking at the big picture? Do you want them stage points, or do you want to keep on, or do you want to bring it down pit road and try to get the lead for the end of for the next start of the next stage? And I would think if I was about, let's see, where Mark Jorgensen Jr. is, you're not going to probably make your way up to the front in them couple of laps that they got left before the end of the stage. So I would come down pit road, get 4 fresh tires, fill it up, and maybe come back down again to take 4 fresh tires and fuel again, just so I can have a little bit more fuel going into the next stage and save fuel while I'm under caution, and just ride right there and let everybody else that did not pit stay out and let them guys come back in. So when they pit, I'm the leader, and I have all the guys that I know that pitted with me right behind me, and I don't have to worry about getting caught up in a big wreck coming back up through the field.
Hey, Evan, the best part about sim racing, those Goodyear Eagles, hey, they're free of charge. You can get all the ones you could possibly want.
And there is no limit as well, so everybody's can get as many as they want. The one thing that I'm thinking is that, and again, I don't do strategy, that's why I talk and pretend like I know what to do on a racetrack, because I don't actually do it. Otherwise, if I was any good, I'd probably be driving. But if we had a regular race, 94 laps, stage ends at lap 50, I can look at the numbers and say, okay, to the end of this race is 44 laps, I'm going to have to pit once. With the time, you can't really do that. There's just now under 46 minutes left on the clock. At the top of your screen, we're just past the halfway point on time. We'll take a look at your iRace midway race break once we complete stage number 1. The caution that's going to come out at the end of the stage is going to take up at least 8 minutes. If it's 4 laps, 10 minutes if it's a 5 lap. So you're looking at 35 minutes or so by the time we get back green to the end of this race. It's harder to say how long is my fuel going to go for 35 minutes when you can't really tell how many laps that's going to end up being, than to say, okay, I know how long my car's going to go on laps.
And, I mean, we're coming to the point. I mean, Dan mentioned it. If you're not going for the stage points, you should probably pit at this point because, well, there's only going to be 5 laps to go. The lights go out this time. They're completing, I believe, lap 45, if that's reading correctly. Either that or one more lap to go. We'll see the yellow come out at lap number 50 to indicate the end of the stage. So those guys can be racing after that. And of course, Evan, we have to talk about when that yellow is going to fly, because it's not as soon as the leaders cross the line. It's 10 seconds after the 10th guy does. And that's just down to the fact that that's when the administrator can throw the caution, because, well, the administrator is sitting right now 4th in line.
Yeah, restart's going to be with 4 laps left to go in the stage. And what also is important to note, not as critical now because everybody's going to be grouped together, but the caution is going to come out after the 10th place driver crosses the start-finish line. That was a big factor 1 week ago at Daytona, because we came to the end of the stage on a green flag run, and 10th place was 10 seconds back. So the race to win the stage didn't end at the start-finish line. They had to keep going off to turns 1 and 2 because that car in 10th place didn't come by for 10 seconds, so the yellow didn't come out to the setup of the quarter. I don't expect that to be a problem because this restart's going to be with 32 cars at a lead lap, and that yellow is going to come out maybe a second after the drivers up front cross the start-finish line. But you got 4 laps to complete the stage. Question is, because I'm sure some drivers are going to be treating this like the end of it, is do we get all 4 laps in under green?
Yeah, that's true, and I thought I had gotten that rule right. Apparently not. I think you guys got me all confused last week. I'm still trying to learn these new rules, but either way, the pace car is going to jump in. I do know this, Evan. They're racing until that light comes out, and even then some. It's going to be a fight back to that caution.
We'll see how many drivers are still in one apiece by the time that comes around. Less than 50 minutes to go, but more importantly, 4 laps left to go in stage number 1. Green flag flies as we go back underway. Paul Servant, for what's about the 3rd time tonight, leads us to turn number 1.
Excellent job, Servants doing on the bottom side, leading that bottom side. You got the 76 of Scott Warren trying to make it work up on the top side. He's got Rod Flagg right behind him in the Pontiac labeled Chevrolet motor number 10. And trying to make it work on the outside, but nothing there at the moment. Now is maybe when we're going to see that outside line, see if they can get anything. It's into 3 once they get to that speed. And as you mentioned, Devin, once they start getting that draft to actually affect these cars, that's when you see that outside line do stuff. But right now, it's still not working because we're riding on board with the 14 Levine, and that top line really isn't going anywhere.
I don't know what happened with the double O, but Jimmy Coleman just got hip checked to the apron. The double O came down. I don't know if Dwayne Cooper saw him there, but he just punted the 78 down. Coleman was able to hang on to it on the apron and had the check way up, but now he's out of this battle inside of the top 10, and the double O's got some pretty substantial left side damage as he also aborts the outside of the racetrack, goes to the bottom, and gets in line behind the 10.
And he was a heck of a job able to hold on to that. We took a second look at it on the LSRTV replay, and that's about the urgency that we were thinking, Dan. We knew these guys are racing to the stage. They don't want to lag around anymore. They want to get to the front. They're single file at the moment, but we're waiting to see. You see the move happen in the 00. Dwayne Cooper jumps to the high side. Mark Durkinson says, yeah, nah, I'm good down here. Thank you very much.
I always find it amazing that when we get to the ends of these races or the end of a stage like this, Dan, we see more single file than we do in the middle of a green flag run.
Yeah, but the 88 right there did the shake. He did like the shake and bake move, I guess you could say, was the 00. He wanted to get the 00 to go high, but the 88 knows the bottom is the place to be. He's got Rod Flagg right in front. Maybe he can get the Valvoline Chevrolet up to the outside with him, maybe make a move. But he is all over Rod Flagg going through 3 and 4 right there. And you got the 42 behind him and the 24 of Andrew Berger on the 88 rear bumper. As you can see, no help for the 00 of Dwayne Cooper.
Top 9 single file. Who's going to make a move? It looks like Jorgensen is thinking about it. 2.666 miles to go to the end of stage 1. Does anybody challenge Paul Servant?
There goes Justin Levine up to the top. Oh! He waited a little too long for that, and the caution is going to fly. Traffic coming in the way, so the yellow is going to come out. That's going to be the end of the stage right there. And, well, we talked about how urgent it was. These guys got to the front. Levine timed it. He was just about a second too off there, Evan.
And if that was the white flag at the end of the race, we would race it out. But because this is still normal race conditions to the end of the stage, the caution flag does come out, and it looks like Paul Servant is going to take home the 10 bonus points for winning stage number 1. We've been complimenting him for the last couple of months on just how good and how consistent he has been in qualifying. That 3 is still looking for his first career Superspeedway Cup Series win. This is not quite that yet, but he has been good tonight, and maybe a breakthrough evening for the number 3 as he takes the stage win.
And we've talked about the 3 because he's had some really good qualifying speed. And Dan, you can kind of speak to this. Qualifying's almost an art here at the plate tracks because there's really one of 2 ways of doing it. You can either take the bottom side and just ride the apron the entire way and try and get the fast time that way, or you could try and arc it in. I call it the Sean Bounty technique because that's how he taught it to me, but using the banking of the turns to speed you up. So there's one way or another, but for the 3, whatever he's done, Dan, it's made it work, but that doesn't necessarily translate to speed in the race.
Yeah, in the race it's a whole lot different, but like you were talking about qualifying, it's only 1 lap. You know, they run it as realistic as you can get. If you're in an official side, you run 2 laps, so you get a warm-up lap. Really, you got to come up through the gears as quick as you can in qualifying with just 1 lap. Go all the way to the wall, come out of pit road, and ride the outside. Then you pretty much just ride the bottom the rest of the way around the track. And once you take the green flag lap, which would pretty much be a green and the white flag, and it's really hard to judge how your 1 lap is going to go because it's all about how you get through the gears and up to speed. If you don't get fully up to speed, you're probably not going to have a good qualifying lap. So the 3 is pretty good at getting up to speed, I might say, with all these good qualifying runs he's doing, Evan.
The drivers, as we expected under the caution flag, are going to come down pit road. Paul Servant first in. He will be second off of pit road. Right now, passed it on the outside, did not get into the box. So the first driver in and out with service is going to be Paul Servant. He decides to go with 2 tires only. So as we work under the 4th yellow flag on the evening, we'll take this opportunity and throw a yellow of our own. Step aside. We'll go LSRTV nonstop so you don't miss a moment of the action. And it'll also take a sneak peek of upcoming day-night transitions that'll be headed to the iRacing service here shortly. You're watching LSRTV's continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series on iRacing Live. We race to the checkered flag when we come back. Welcome back live to the Talladega Superspeedway. The field's still working behind the iRacing.com pace car with 36 minutes left on the clock in tonight's fourth race on the Superspeedway Cup Series calendar. Happy that you're hanging out with us at LSRTV at iRacing Live. Evan Pizzoco along with Cisco Scarluzza and Daniel Everhart topside with you at the LSRTV booth as we work under the caution. We use this opportunity to take a look top to bottom at our iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is your one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series by NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and more. Let's go out on top of the pace car. Here's a look top to bottom as we get set for a restart. Seth the Merchant runs in the race lead. Gary Champion is second. Glenn Hedrick, Paul Servant, Mark Jorgensen Jr. third, fourth, and fifth, with Brandon Monsivice in sixth, Rod Flagg in seventh, Andrew Berger is eighth, Ronnie Wofford is ninth, and Chris Bassini is 10th.
11th is Scott Fenstermacher. 12th is going to be Alex Hallinar. 13th, Brandon Chaburko. 14th, going to be Travis Brown. 15th to Tom Dreierling. 16th, Ramon Evans. 17th, Spencer Preet. 18th, going to be Victor Bartlett. 19th, going to go to Greg Hooks. And 20th is going to be Andy Kessler.
21st, Scott Warren. 22nd, Devontae Peterson. 23rd, Mike Schultz. 24th, Sean Mecherick. 25th, Jimmy Coleman. 26th, Justin Levine. 27th, Ray Rittenhauer. 28th, Michael Cosi. 29th, Larry Camp. 30th, Daniel Holloway. 31st, Harry Tiller. 32nd, Dwayne Cooper. And one lap down, Jared Haggerty in 33rd. 34th, 6 lap down is Dan Harrington. 35th, 19 laps down, pretty much out of this race, Mike Dale. And 36, 34 laps down is Tommy Hall. And Jay Riot is rounding out your field in 37th with never completing a lap.
Look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com and sign up today. So T-minus 33 minutes and 46 seconds left on the clock as the pace car dives down and in. The stage race, it is complete. All that matters is the stopwatch. It's Seth the Merchant. Best position he's been in all night, and it comes at a very opportune time. He's looking to punch his ticket to the playoffs, and he will bring us back to the green flag as we go back underway.
And a great start by the 57 here. Excellent push from Glenn Hedrick in the number 21, and Glenn's looking for some luck to go his way because so far this race has not worked for him. Looking to turn it around a little bit, and look out of nowhere, if I can get the word out, Mark Jorgensen Jr. is somehow back in third, which, while surprising ultimately for me, is not that surprising because guess what? It's Mark Jorgensen Jr., Evan, and he's been on fire as of late.
One of the fan favorites, 13 career Superspeedway Cup Series wins. That puts him third all-time behind just the likes of Rodney Wofford, who is second all-time with 20, and Brandon Chaburko, who is the first all-time with 21. Jorgensen in the 88 machine still searching, though, for a Superspeedway Cup Series championship. He would guarantee himself an opportunity to fight for one if he gets the win and joins that playoff grid. But the inside is still the place to be. The advantage sits at 2 car lengths. The 18 Machida champion with 3 of Servant and the 54 of Monsivice. The lone drivers bringing up the outside.
And no real help for them on the outside, and I'm surprised as I just look in the background and surprise, surprise, Brandon Chaburko is weaving in and out of line, just jumped to the inside. So the 22 isn't that far out of this picture either. Another fan favorite in that snap-on Ford. But the outside is, well, it's little pickings outside. You got Monsivice, you got Servant, you got the 18 of Champion. That's about it, all the way back to Travis Brown. And Spencer Preet was up there, but he just bailed on him as well. Well, actually, no, he's back and forth. So Preet deciding whether he wants to be up there, but no surprise, guess who wants to be up there, Evan? It's Brandon Chaburko. No, never mind.
Well, the 22's thinking about it, and was up at the outside, went back down to the bottom. He's got damage too on that snap-on entry, so I have to question if that's affecting his ability to work at all. It's much easier to work with damage in the middle of a pack as opposed to leading a pack. But it's kind of funny, Dan, because we talk about plate tracks, they're the most aerodynamic sensitive tracks, but then we also say if you get a little bit of damage, it's not terrible because the draft can help you out. So kind of contradictory statements in saying both.
Yeah, it is, but is he trying to move to block to keep draft coming on his rear bumper? He's trying to get somebody to push him, I think. That's what he's trying to do. Because if you notice, everybody pulls away from him a little bit once they get going down the straightaway where it's really fast down the straightaways and the draft really comes into play. Down these long straightaways, they'll start pulling away. So he's hoping the 06 and all of them will get on his rear bumper, but it's like the 06 lets off. As you can see, Gary Champion right there going from starting second all the way back there where Brandon Schaberko is around the 12th spot. He's always trying to do, because look at the 3 right there. That is a perfect example. The 3 is just pulling away from him with the pack. So the 22 is really holding up the 06 of Tom Dreiling.
And come the end of the straightaways, you're looking at somewhere with around 198, 199 miles an hour on the front row. The 21 of Hendrick spins. He comes down and gets Wofford. Flag is involved as well, and we have big problems.
And I had just jumped on board the 06 of Tom Dreiling, so we got a great look at the driver's seat as that was happening. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great look for the driver's seat for a lot of those guys. We'll wind back the cameras here and see if we can take a look at what happened there. But that was a massive incident, and that one this time happening way in the front of the field.
Yeah, and we saw something like this happen earlier. Coming off of the corner, you're sitting on somebody's right rear, and it wasn't even, oftentimes when we see somebody get hooked like that, Dan, it's the car on the back moves a little bit on the bumper and it hooks the guy. I don't really see that 7 of Wofford at all going up and down on the bumper. He looked pretty square, but because he was on the right rear and they were starting to unload off of the corner, that 21 just snapped up the hill. Hedrick did a good job of keeping it out of the fence. The problem is he then came back down into traffic and it got ugly quickly.
Yeah, that's a good, it was a good save until he came back down the racetrack, and that's what happens when you get on the right rear quarter panel. It just lightens you up, and it takes you out, and there was nothing really to 7. It wasn't intentional or nothing like that. It's just, that's what happens in plate racing. When you decide to push and want to push on somebody, you can wreck them, and then you have people that get caught up in it that didn't deserve to be in it, and it's just a big wreck down the front straightaway going off into the what they call the tri-oval here at Talladega.
A couple of drivers took a big hit after all of that happened. The 14 machine on the outside of the racetrack, Justin Levine, decided to opt high and tried to get on the brakes. He came in and just obliterated the 83. It looks like from a faraway camera angle that he just ARCA braked him, but the 14 was on the brakes and slowed down about 70 miles an hour, but he had to turn and get around the 21, and when you make a sharp movement to the right, that car is not going to respond to a sharp movement to the left, and it was a minefield. He played Minesweeper, he guessed it incorrectly, and he who is 5 seconds behind with the contact started also gets torn up. About half the drivers in that wreck were behind the pack where it was.
And it's an interesting camera angle from the 14. A couple cars coming down pit road. We'll touch on that afterwards, but part of the problem with Justin Levine was you can't see anything, and he basically drove. Once he got through some of the cloud of smoke, it was a little bit easier, but he drove into a huge cloud of smoke, and there's nothing you could see. He probably thought he might have a chance to get through that one, and sadly for the 14, it did not go the way he wanted, Evan. But we talk about these smoke effects, and this is still something that, while not relatively new to the sim, is still somewhat new to some of these more veteran drivers, and that came with the change to DX11. Once that came out, we got much bigger smoke and particle effects, and it makes, when you're trying to drive through these big ones, a lot harder.
Yeah, and you could see from that onboard, he just didn't see those cars until the last second, and I'm aware that it's the 1-4 instead of the 4-1, but very Kurt Busch-esque incident. Smoke, you guessed, 50-50 shot, you guessed wrong, you're in the accident. And it's a tough break for him as we slow things down once again late in this race. Probably the biggest incident we've seen so far tonight, that time before, partly due to the fact that drivers had completed the stage. We knew that we were into the home stretch. There would not be as many drivers hanging back because early in the stages we'll let you know, hey, we got 15, 16 cars battling for the race lead, but then you got a 6 group car car that's sitting, maybe 10 seconds back, and 4 drivers who are sitting, 7 or 8 seconds back, because that's by design. Late in the race, there's no benefit to hanging back. The idea early is you hang back, you avoid the accidents, but at some point you have to go. And once that clock got down to 30 minutes, it's go time. You got to get up on a wheel and go. So we had a lot more cars, especially hurt because the incident started up front. We had a lot more drivers still 2x2x2 racing, and that's why really if you were on the outside, you could only go high, and if you're on the bottom lane, you could dive low and just hope that nobody was in front of you. I always like running at a plate track on the bottom. It may not be backed up by statistics, but at least I feel, Dan, if I'm on the inside, I can use the grass. I have a little bit more room to avoid an incident, whereas the guys at the top side, you turn left, there's a car, you turn right, there's a wall, and the only option is straight, and sometimes that's not clear either.
Yeah, and then you also have to worry about what happened to Glenn Hedrick right there. You say the outside isn't a good spot to be, but really you're running the middle line, and you have really, the guy on the bottom is going to go lower. If he can tell that somebody's wrecking on your right side, that car might come flying down back into the middle lane. That might push the middle lane car into you. So you kind of just ease over to the left a little bit, so that gives the guy in the middle lane or the outside lane a chance to come in. But with a wreck like that, how the car shoots back and forth, it's just, when he overcorrected the car, it's going to take out more drivers because he's just trying to save it. There's nothing he did wrong. He was just trying to save the car, and that is part of it. That's the chance you take. He was trying to keep off the wall because as a driver, your first instinct is, oh, I'm going to hit the wall. I'm going to have to turn it back left. And when you try to turn it back left, finally the front tires catch, and it's going to pull the car left, and then it's going to shoot right and then back left, and you're just on for the ride then.
So now we're really at the point, Zisco, where for those drivers who maybe hadn't already found themselves in this position, that wreck took a good number of cars out, and many of them were up front, fast drivers that have been having a good night so far to that point. Somebody like a Seth the Merchant, who is luckily able to avoid that one because he was on the inside when it started up top, and it was clear by the time those cars bounced back down. I'm sure there was a couple of drivers in the same boat that he was that were in that where they were hanging back. This was the time that they committed to go up front. Now they're in an accident. They may not have any quick repairs available. If they do, now they're really on thin ice. And it's at this point on in the race, after you get a big one like that, we still have 27 cars on the lead lap. That's pretty good for having 37 take the green flag. Now, though, any additional wrecks are really going to start to take cars out of this race.
And can I have a moment, Evan?
I'm not going to say no.
The front 2 cars on the bottom lanes, hey, I painted those 2 cars, and that's the only chance I'm ever gonna have to say say that. So good job, Mark, and good job, Brandon, because the LSRTV is running well tonight, and of course now I said it, we jinxed it, and they're probably gonna wreck in the next caution.
That's 100% on you if and when it happens. I will say I'd have no problem getting a good shot of those LSRTV Chevrolets coming across the line 1-2 to get up on our social medias, Twitter at LSRTV, Facebook.com/LSRTV official. You keep it locked there. You can get post-race interviews on there, some highlights from old races, everything that's on there. That's the place to be at. That's also how you can keep up to date with us and make sure that you do not miss anything if you happen to swing by and enjoy what you're seeing, to make sure to get up on that. So restart due up. Again, the clock continues to wind down. We're just inside of 23 minutes left to go. A yellow flag would take probably a third of the time that's left in this race off of the board. So really, this is a late race restart from Talladega Superspeedway, and in control of the field is Jorgensen, somehow finding his way back up front.
Evan Jorgensen gonna wait on the throttle. There it is, green flag back in the air, Evan, and not a good start at all for the 88. The 3 got out of there like a bat out of hell and drops to the bottom. Paul Servant, he threw the nitrous on that one because he's to the lead as they head into 1.
He's trying to become the first driver to win a stage and the overall race win on the season. And that was a nice move, but the outside, we have seen a couple of drivers on the top get good jumps, beat the guy on the inside of the start-finish line, but typically they maybe edge it by half a car length, 3/4 of a car length. Once you go up the banking, though, on the outside, the inside dives back in. Second place, conventionally, Dan, not the greatest place to be on restarts. In fact, at any place besides the Superspeedway, I'd almost take third over second because you're with the leader and he can control the restart. But in these plate races, that 3 on the outside of the racetrack. He knew when the caution was, or when the green flag was coming out. Any other track, the race leader can time it from the pace car goes down to the green flag comes out. That gives the control car a big advantage. The only advantage you have of being the control car at a plate track is you're on the bottom. Both of those guys go when they see the green. Servant just beat him that time.
Yeah, he beat him up through the gearboxes really well. And, you know, one other thing in the sim that you have is you have an auto blip button. As you look at the 88, what a move right there. Pulls to the right rear quarter panel of Paul Servant, and that gives him enough drag right there on the 3 where it's going to take the 88 and put him to the outside. 57 also goes with the 88 of SEPTA Merchant. Here we go. We're going to have a door-to-door battle. Out of 4, the 88 actually is going to clear Paul Servant. He has the chance to move down, and he does going through the trial. Oh, he made it. Made a little contact there with him. Forced his way down there, and that's going to hurt Brandon.
Yeah, Monsivice was pushing the 3, and he was the only reason Paul Servant stood a chance because the 3 was left out to dry, and the 88, after a little bit of a dicey place, if there's one place on the track you don't want that to happen, it's the inside of the dry oval because those cars can barely keep them straight by themselves. Somehow, all of the cars involved in that are still in one piece, and at the end of it all, Jorgensen goes to the race lead with 20 minutes to go.
And for those of you wondering where Cheburko is, I saw a couple people asking, he is in a mess right now in that second pack because he just shook off who I believe was Jared Haggerty, who was right on his back bumper. And as Dan alluded to earlier, Cheburko's trying to find friends, but when you're Brandon Cheburko and you're Brandon Cheburko, that can be kind of a hard subject, Evan. And right now, he's getting left out to dry. Dryerling's going to go with him. Berger going to go with him as well. But Dryerling, I think, is starting to get a little bit tired of sitting behind the 22 all night.
Right, what I'm trying to look at is Brandon Cheburko still has that damage that we talked about on that last run. The back-end damage, which appears to be stunting his speed on the straightaways. He's had that damage since the opening 40 laps of this race, and I'm going to try to go back and find exactly what happened because I would imagine if he had a quick repair, he would have used it by now. But
that was the first
he may
caution.
still have it in the back.
That's when he
right,
it. That was
right.
Remember, yeah, he got hit from behind. I think it was the 52 in the first caution, but he's had that all race. I think he's worried that there might be a big wreck later on, but he's had that almost all night.
Yeah, and just confirming that now he has had it since the first incident, so he hasn't done the quick repair, and that's another strategy that we use as a hypothetical option, but Cheburko is a good example because he gets that little bit of damage, he's still able to fight for it as we see side by side for the race lead, with Harry Tiller going to make a challenge, push from Seth the Merchant, going to be a drag race down the Alabama, getting back straight away, not going to be able to get it, and he'll come up short this time to turn number 3. You get damage, if you use your quick repair at lap number 5, you get that car damage, that all, you're done for the rest of the race. So Cheburko takes the flip side. He'll run around with a little bit of damage. That way, if he gets involved in an accident, he still has the quick repair, but he just has to hope that we don't go green to the end, or he would have miscalculated his strategy. I'm surprised he didn't get it taken off that last caution flag with about 24 minutes on the clock.
Well, Dan, do you buy it? Would you rather be out there saving the fast repair but maybe losing time as a driver? How much can you really risk? Because we're at a plate track, something can break out at a moment's notice.
Well, you got to treat the minutes like laps, you know, with 30 minutes to go. You got to kind of expect there's going to be a caution. So with 30 minutes to go, if I had damage, I'm going to come down and use my reset and just hope for the best. That's what you have to do. As you see the 69 with a big push from the 57 of SEPTA Merchant, trying to get to the outside of the 88 of Martin Jorgensen Jr. But Cisco, back to what you were saying, you just got to treat it like laps. You can't sit there and ride right behind and just have damage the whole race. And you know Cheburko, how aggressive he is and how many bold moves he makes during the race, that he can get to the front quickly, but it's not looking like there's going to be any cautions. Everybody's minding their P's and Q's. Everybody's running a straight line trying to get to the end of this race.
And the question sits, it's how long will that continue? 17 minutes to go on the board. If we do stay green, I believe we'll have to see drivers back down pit road to top off. The 57 and the 3, a little bit of contact. DeMerchant steps out of line. He just nicked Paul Servant. It upset the Oreo machine just a tad. Good news for Jorgensen. The 3 was able to get right back on the right foot, and he was able to push him to the inside, so they do not get on by. And this lead pack went from single file to 2x2, 4 rows deep in the blink of an eye, as the 57, followed by Tiller, then Piscini, and then Wofford, all heavy hitters in this series, come up on the outside line.
And out of nowhere comes Chris Piscini. I mean, we talked about it at the top of the broadcast. Piscini still does not have a win yet, but he's sitting at the top of the point standings should we not count wins. He has the highest point total of anybody else in this championship fight thus far. So Piscini, we know he's a very consistent driver when it comes to these super speedways. It's just hard for him to get wins because that consistency isn't necessarily caused by aggressiveness. He just makes his way up there when the time is right, and he's around usually. But unfortunately for Piscini, he's often been the guy pushing Rodney Wofford or Mark Jorgensen to the win. He doesn't get a whole lot of them himself, and unfortunately for him, that doesn't really secure you in the championship.
Well, you get good points out of it, but you would much rather be the guy that is getting it pushed to the race lead as opposed to the driver who is doing the assisting. And right now where the one is, he's only really got one hope of going to the race lead, and that is that Tiller pushes Demergent to the lead. He then pushes the 69 to the lead, and then it's his turn. But again, the outside, they struggle to stay side by side with the race lead on a consistent basis. They'll drop back, get a big run, and that's good for them. But the problem is, if you're somebody like the one, or in this case the 57, if you're leading the outside and you drop back a bit the second you get a run, somebody's going to come up, jump to the outside on you, and then take that line away, and then you just end up being another car in the train as opposed to leading that charge.
Yeah, and look at the big run by Seth DeMerchant. He's going to get clear by 2 car lengths right here, and he's actually bringing the 69 of Harry Tiller right there behind him. Harry Tiller gets clear. What a move by them two to get up in line, drag the brake by the 57. That was just picture perfect right there. That's exactly what you need to do. But look at the 69. He's doing the same thing, holding back on the front bumper of the 88, but the 88's really smart about that. He's right there dragging the brake himself. He's giving the big push to the 69. He's going to see if he can get a run into 3 and 4. 57 looks up and block that move by the 69. Now you got Chris Piscini right there on the back of the 69 of Harry Tiller, and the 88 back on the back bumper of the 57.
Something else we haven't seen tonight, Cisco. We're not sure if Chaburko's car at the moment can do it. He's 5 seconds back in 19th position. But we really haven't seen a lot of 3 wide tonight, even though it's not often a third lane really coming from, grassroots run. From 15th, a couple of guys getting together and making the third lane work. Oftentimes, we'll see somebody go from the inside to the outside line, and the drivers just don't want to push him. They'll go to his outside, and we'll end up 3 wide for a lap or 2 and then double file back out. Nobody has really been utilizing that additional real estate. If you're somebody outside of the top 10, you continue to see that clock wind down. You know that you're going to have to make a move soon. But assuming that these drivers cannot make it on fuel, Cisco, the pit stop is going to be far more important than anything you're doing right now in the pack.
I'm trying to hear a fuel number right now, and there's a lot of radio traffic. Right now I'm on the Jorgensen-Chaburko channel trying to get a number from those guys, so I'll let you know what I get, but from what it sounds like, I'm not sure they're confident they can make it.
And I don't think they can either. This restart came, let's look at laps and time. 13 minutes, 25 seconds left on the clock. You can go 21 to 23 laps. Lap times are a little bit under a minute here at 51, 52 seconds. So you got to think it's going to be less than 20 minutes on fuel. We went back green at lap number 63, and we're working lap 74 now. So best case scenario, 11, 12 more laps. We can do about 15, 16 laps in 13 minutes. That's awfully close, and there's no way to get a definitive number depending on where that clock is when they come to forward to get what would be the white flag. Then at that point, 1 lap could be extremely important on if you can make it or not. So I'm thinking drivers are gonna have to pit, and we'll see when that comes.
And they're talking right now, and Dan, it's everybody has to get down single file, and they are now. So I think, Dan, if there's one indicator of if these guys are coming down pit road, everybody's down on the bottom single file. This is probably the best shot they're going to get all day.
Yeah, and you better be careful. You better have it set up to where the first guy goes into the bottom, the second guy comes up top, third guy goes to the bottom, 77 needs to go up high. When these guys pit, you have to be really careful, or you can send a car back into racetrack and bring out a caution. But what I was going to say, as you see them coming down pit road, really smoothly right there, the 57 hard on the brakes, trying to get it down to 60 miles per hour down pit road speed. You got the 1, you got the 7, and you got the 88 coming down pit road to get probably a splash of gas and go. But what I was trying to get at is I was back here looking at the 98 of Andy Kessler. Is he gonna? These guys were 9 seconds back, 10 seconds back. Are they back here saving fuel? Gonna try to make it out, or make it to the end while the time is running out?
And the key here as well is that wasn't everybody on the pit lane. You rounded off the numbers who came down. There's still plenty of drivers out on track, so you're going to have a couple of different groups pitting at different times that I think, assuming everybody can have a relatively clean and orderly stop, are then going to be blended back together at some point. This time at 4, the 77 decides to stay out, but we have more drivers in. Scott Warren is coming down pit road. So is Tiller. Jared Haggerty joining him. Only 3 drivers, though, so that group of 3 is not going to be as fast when they get back out than the group of 6 ones who just pitted the lap before. 6 cars, a lot quicker in the draft than 3.
Yeah, that's for sure, Evan. And back to what Dan was pointing out, I mean, you're Mr. Vegas. If you're sitting out there, I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of hoping that I can make it to the end because, as we say time and time again, week in, week out, 2.5 and 2.66 miles, that's a very long way to go. Yes, you can save fuel in the draft, but if you're Andy Kessler and you're in this kind of smaller group, they're not doing a very good job of sticking together and staying single file. I'm not sure they're going to be able to save as more guys hitting pit road.
Servant's going to come down this time. You got Holloway down as well. Brandon Cruz, Montsevice, Johnson Levine, all down pit road. Something else to keep in mind is in 2 minutes from now, we're going to be inside of the point of no return. A caution, I think, would give you enough to be able to get through the caution laps to the end of this race and not run out of gas. We keep telling you in conventional wisdom, 5 laps or less to go. This race will end if a caution comes out, but on time, 8 minutes left or less means that we will probably not restart this race. Just inside of 10 minutes left on the clock. So instead of the final 4 or 5 laps, we're really talking about you could lose out on 8 or 9 laps. That's how different the time makes it from the laps. So the drivers staying out may be trying to walk it into that window to see if they can get lucky. And then once we get below that point, then they might have to commit and come down.
Well, Cozy, Berger, and Preet are together. That's one group. Then you got Jimmy Coleman, who's out in the middle of no man's land. He's not going to be able to save a whole lot of gas out there. Then you got another group of 3 in Brown, Edric, and no, it's just those guys. It's a lap car with them. It's the 61 of Thiel. And then you got Ramon Evans and Victor Bartlett. Then you got that group of 4 that Kessler's in with Kessler, Champion, Rittenauer, and you see the 33 of Larry Camp also throw in the 15 of Greg Hook. So this is coming down to I'm sticking with the strategy with the guys I'm next to and hoping that I can make it from here. But if these guys had calculators, they'd probably be smoking. Cozy looking inside. Yep, he's going to make that left-hand turn, as is Berger, as is Spencer Preet. So those 3 and maybe a 4th. Yeah, the 78 of Jimmy Coleman also making his
4 drivers too.
Road. Yep.
That would tell me that they can't make it because that's a lot of cars coming down. So last time by, the top 14 drivers have yet to pit, which means that the driver who is in the best position now is Seth DeMerchant. He is the first driver in the running order that has pitted. Now, Paul Servant was that car. Won the stage in search of a first career win. He was in front of DeMerchant, but he was by himself. And when that 4-car freight train at the 57, the 1, the 7, and the 88 caught him, there was no chance. They blew by him, and now Seth DeMerchant is a handful of seconds in front of Servant to the point where I'm not even sure that 3 is going to be able to get back up to him. So the driver who will cycle to the race lead, assuming that everybody pits, is Seth DeMerchant in 13th position. That's the group you have to watch. But Travis Brown is your race leader, and that group stayed out, but I believe they just said over the radio that he, Hedrick, and looks like the 61 is working with him as well. A lap car like Thiel are going to be pitting the next time by. That would give the race lead to that Andy Kessler group.
And this is the group that, Dan, you alluded to. They were 10 seconds back, and now you've driven these cars. You know more than we do. Can you save that much fuel? I mean, it's almost 7 minutes worth of fuel. That's a lot of time, Dan, and I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure either, but you know, Andy Kessler's a crew chief, so he has all them calculations like that, and he knows what he's doing behind the wheel. And plate racing's a lot different, but I'm not sure what he's gonna do. We'll see when he comes out of 4 right here, and the 98 cannot make it, so that's gonna give the 3rd place over to Gary Champion, and Ray Rittenhauer is going to be in 4th. And Travis Brown actually came down, and Glenn Hedrick. So that's actually going to give Gary Champion the race lead with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go.
And I was surprised that Kessler pitted, but the rest of the drivers with him weren't. That would tell me, Cisco, that they weren't in communication with each other and therefore probably were not discussing with each other about saving fuel. So they're not going to be able to make it to the end. The 18 becomes the race leader. Then it's Rittenauer, Rod Flag, and that's it. We just see Seth the Merchant is now up to 5th position, but he's going to get past. That's big. The 7 machine getting around him, not 4th position, though. Ronnie Watford, a lap car, jumping up in front of him. So Seth the Merchant continues to lead the train of cars who has pitted as here comes champion. Rittenauer is in. Rod Flag is in. Everybody has now pitted. 6 minutes left to go.
6 minutes left to go, and this is how the battle is sitting. The 7 is technically on the lead lap, or will be once we get around to the start-finish line, because, as you mentioned, he's a lap down. But because he's in front of the leader, in case something happens, he's at least going to be scored on the lead lap. Then you got Mark Jorgensen right behind him in that 88, and his scoring going to shuffle through a little bit. Then you got Chris Passini. Then you go back to group number 2. Paul Servant, Brendan Cruz-Montevais, Andrew Berger, Spencer Preet, Justin Levine, and Daniel Holloway. That's more cars, Evan. That's more speed in the draft. I don't think this is over between those 4.
No, it's not impossible for these drivers to be able to catch up, single file especially, that you might have the likes of Servant, who's 0.8 of a second back, maybe get another opportunity. But again, the reason those 4 are in front is because they pitted together, they got back out on track, and they worked together. Montevais was leading after the cycle of pit stops, but he did not have the drafting help. Now, though, we're going to see ourselves with about a 9-car lead pack. And Servant closes into the bumper with help from Montevais. You've got Berger, you've got Preet, you've got Levine, and you've got Holloway. 9 drivers going to have an opportunity to fight for the win at Talladega inside of 5 minutes to go as the 3 looks to the outside.
Yeah, Paul Servant jumping to the outside. He had one heck of a run. We saw him catching him hand over fist, just trying to get to him. And now Mark Jorgensen going to jump out. He wants that lead draft on the outside. So Mark Jorgensen, he pitted with them, but we know as well, Mark Jorgensen wants a win here because it's going to lock himself into that chase. And at the end of the day, these guys are going to go out and get those wins themselves. Now 3 cars together, 4 cars together up on the outside. The 88, the 3, the 54, and the 24.
Funny how in the last run of the race, down at the checkered flag, 4 minutes to go that time on the start-finish line. That might give us 5 laps left to go in this event that we get our first cycle of green flag pit stops on the evening. Montevais not committed to the outside, wants to go to the bottom, but it looks like Berger may be willing to go topside with him as we are door banging for second at 200 miles an hour. Jorgensen and the 57 at Merchant exchange blows. Remember, that 7 is not a lead lap car. The 7 is a lap car. The battle for the race lead is between the 57 and the 88. Now Jorgensen is in front.
Yeah, Jorgensen has that lead. And Dan, where do you want to be in this battle? Do you want to be the 57 with the 7 in front of you, giving you that draft? Or do you want to be the 88 up on the top side? What's the best place to go here? As one of these guys, he's going to go look 3 wide. The Merchant's not going to do it, though. Watch that left rear, Seth. And he's going to hold on to it as they make it back into 1.
Well, you want to be on the bottom right now. That's the guys with the most, has the most cars behind him. The 57 actually takes the lead back right there. But the problem is he's got somebody right there in front of him. He's cutting off the draft that the 1 could be given to the 57 to actually take that position back. And he does. He clears them down the back straightaway here at Talladega, as the 88 needs to hang back on the 3, get the big run off the corner, and hopefully somebody, the 54 is not going to look to the outside. Nobody wants that 88 win in this race because he wins way too much. As the 1 looks to the outside, Chris Passini is going for the lead down the front straightaway.
And he sees the 88 as a means to a way, goes to the outside, tries to pull up alongside, and he will lead at the start-finish line. The key is clearing the 7, though, because that is a lap machine. Wofford is technically, at the moment, the last driver on the lead lap. If Passini could clear the 7, right now the 7's helping a 57. As soon as somebody gets in front of Wofford, that 7 becomes more of a disadvantage to the Merchant than it is an advantage right now. But so far, those 2 drivers working together appears to be helping.
And how about throw a little bit of cash incentive into this? That 1, he's got the orange banner, as does the 72. If those guys win this race, that's an extra $15. Thank you very much, Evan. If I'm Chris Passini, I'm going for that money.
He's on the outside. He's in a perfect position. Chris Piscini trying to get a first win on the season. He is the points leader into tonight with 1 minute and 44 seconds to go at the start-finish line. I don't think DeMerchant's happy with the situation he's in. It's looking like he's trying to get around the 7 machine because the 1, although he's not been able to clear the 7, has been sitting on half a car length in front of him, and DeMerchant is now stuck. Can't do anything about it.
They can't do anything about it. Contact. The 57 holds on to it. They nearly went 3 wide, and you mentioned how unhappy he was. Now lap traffic going to play an effect, and now the 1's going to clear the 7. The 88's going to clear the 7, and all of a sudden, Chris Piscini, with a huge help from Mark Jorgensen Jr., gets in front of the 7, and we are running out of time. Maybe 3 laps to go here, Evan.
They are not having a lot of time left to get to the end of this thing, and they have now been able to get around the 7 Chevrolet. So this time by Chris Piscini, trying to get himself into the playoffs, is out in front. The drivers in second and third behind him. Jorgensen and Servant trying to do the same. The 3, though, with no support on the outside, may see his hopes of a first career win fall away and wait 1 more week as he slides on the outside, and we go single file once more. Piscini, Jorgensen. Who's going to come from behind to get up to the mid? What does Seth DeMerchant do? As the 57 looks high. Looks like he is going to work with the 3 as they head off to corner 3.
Yeah, doing a great job on the outside is Paul Servant trying to push these guys, but the problem is he doesn't have a whole lot of help up there. Now comes Justin Levine up to the top side, 17 seconds, so looks like we're going to get, this won't be the white flag. They'll get the white flag next time by, but for Seth DeMerchant, it's go time. That means it's time to go. He looks to the outside, a huge push from the 3. Time will run out, so white flag next time by.
2 laps to go. Here goes the 88 to the outside as he tries to move up. Look at the 1 of Piscini, though, trying to block the lane, but now he's got no lane. The lap car to the inside. DeMerchant wants to go 4 wide. He'll drive into the bumper, and somehow that's going to help the Pennzoil Chevrolet as Piscini maintains control to quarter number 3. Jorgensen back to the inside as we come to the white flag.
Yeah, white on the ticker, but white on the screen. Now Jorgensen trying to get a little bit of a run off of turn 4. Survey says Piscini going to go up to block. They're racing, Seth DeMerchant to the inside. Is he going to turn him? They make contact. And actually, this is the checkered because they took it that way. Piscini to the line.
Chris Piscini, checkered flag by 2/100ths of a second. Jorgensen tried to get to his outside, and to give credit, that 24 and the 88 came out of nowhere. Because we were watching the 57 and others, and they got around the 7, had a huge run, and the reason for that was the 57 was busy setting up the 1. They weren't helping each other, so they had no draft and were about 7 miles an hour slower off of the corner. So the 57 went to the inside, the 88 and the 24 stayed together, came up just a little bit short. Maybe if Jorgensen didn't get into DeMerchant, they might have been able to do it, but he comes up just a handful of inches short, and Chris Piscini is going to take home the checkered flag tonight, his 4th career win.
And it was a great race there, Evan, and the reason we had that confusion is the way this timing is based. It is based off endurance racing rules, and they were not halfway done with the lap with the time running out. So at that point, those guys, that was the white flag. They weren't going to have to go around another time, and we watched the battle once again, and Chris Piscini did all he could to hold on to it. That's what ultimately the ticket was. They saw the white flag, and you saw immediately Mark Jorgensen got on the wheel and was trying to race it for that victory. So close at the end. Not the closest finish we've seen, but definitely one of the most exciting.
And they got the white flag halfway down the back straightaway. That's why it came on a little bit late, and we initially thought we were going to come to get the 2 to go. The white flag came out because that clock struck 0 before halfway on the lap. So that's why we saw all of a sudden DeMerchant try to make it 4 wide out of 2, because instead of having a whole lap to set it up, he only really got a half a lap of notice. And Chris Piscini, I guess, could benefit from that because the drivers behind him had less of a heads up on what they were going to do to get out to him, but still an exciting finish as those top 4, Dan, came right across the start finish line, all within 1/10 of a second of each other.
Yeah, and what a move by Seth DeMerchant to get out from behind the 7. It was like the 7 really was, just in the way. He couldn't, the 57 couldn't make the moves he wanted, but he had to make that last pass on him to even set himself up on Chris Passini. Passini was a sitting duck right there. The 24 of Andrew Berger was all over the 88, trying to give him that one last push. If the finish line was at turn 1 and 2, the 88 would have won this race, but he even had a tri-oval, a chance to go through the tri-oval and even make that up where the finish line sits. Just not enough room and not enough time on the move by the 88 and the 24. But the 57 and the 1, I think, were the guys to beat in this race. The 88 had a good shot at the end, and Chris Passini came out on top.
He's your winner tonight, and he joins the list that's accompanied by the likes of Altman, Monsivice, and Chaburko. 4 races down, 4 different winners. Those drivers guaranteed to the playoffs. Chris Passini, the latest member, points leader into tonight, so I think it's very fitting that he gets that. And because Passini came into tonight as the I-5 driver, he gets that $20 bonus that was carried over to tonight. That bonus will now reset. The top 5 finishers from this week will have an opportunity to fight for $5 in 1 week's time. So Passini, a win, a playoff berth, $20 in the back pocket, and career win number 4. Not a bad night out for the driver out of New York. So we'll take this opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll be chatting with your race winner down in Gatorade Victory Lane. You're watching the Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. We'll chat with Chris Passini when we come back to Talladega. Welcome back live to the Talladega Superspeedway for the LSRTV post-race show. Following this coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series tonight, the 4th race on the Season 15 Championship draws to a close. We've had our 4th different winner. We'll be chatting with the latest member of the playoff grid in just a moment. First, as always, though, as we welcome you back topside with us, we'll look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results tonight from Talladega. Chris Pasiti gets the checkered flag. Mark Jorgensen Jr. oh so close to netting his 14th, but he's able to come home in second tonight. Good points night for he and Seth the Merchant, who comes home just behind him in third. We'll be trackside with all of those drivers momentarily. Andrew Berger, Daniel Holloway coming home inside of the top 5. Good finishes for them. Brandon Cruz Monsivice is 6th position. Scott Warren comes home in 7th. Michael Cozy Jr. is 8th, with Harry Tiller in 9th, and Travis Brown rounds out your top 10.
11th going to go to Jimmy Coleman in the 78. 12th going to go to Ramon Evans. 13th going to go to Scott Fendermacher rather. Andy Kessler going to bring it home 14th. 15th going to go to Gary Champion. 16th to Ray Rittenauer in second. 17th, Brandon Chaburko will wind up there. 18th going to go to Tom Darling. 19th to Justin Levine. Rod Flag rounds out your top 20.
21st is Spencer Preet. 22nd is Paul Servant. Don't know what happened to him. He was up there in the top 5 at the end of this thing. Maybe he didn't take enough fuel on that pit stop. We'll have to get back to you on that. 23rd, Rodney Wofford. 24th, Victor Bartlett. 25th, Mike Schultz. 26th, Alex Hallinar. 27th, Larry Camp. 28th, Jared Haggerty. 29th, Greg Hooks. 30th, Glenn Hedrick. 31st, Sean McCarrick. 32nd is Dan Harrington. 33rd, Devontae Peterson. 34th, Dwayne Cooper. 35th, Mike Dial. 36th, Tommy Hall. And rounding out the 37 drivers tonight that never made a lap was Jay Riot.
To look at your LSRTV full race results. Now we are down on pit lane with a driver who comes home with the checkered flag tonight. Chris Pasiti is your winner from the Talladega Superspeedway. Chris, congratulations on that one. We had our only green flag pit stops on the night very late in that one. It came down to a call of fuel only. Somehow in the end, you guys get the job done. So first off, what was it like? What was the call from coming down to the pit lane, and then how did you guys execute it from there on out to the end?
Yeah, it's a little harder calling the fuel mileage for time races now because you have to think of how many laps you could possibly do left. So once I saw that we were able to make it, we called for the short pit just so we can get out of the pack and we could start drafting with each other and try to pull away, which we did, but the second pack ended up catching us, but we ended up pulling it off, and I don't know how the hell I stayed out front on that one, but that was fun.
Certainly, with the way that these races have gone out, you get a caution flag in this timed kind of a race. You lose 8 minutes or so as opposed to just 4 laps. So it is a bigger percentage gone from that. Was there ever a concern that, hey, if we short pit early, then there's a chance a yellow comes out, everybody else stays out, they can then stretch it on fuel and we're going to be stuck back here? Or, how aware were you of maybe where everybody else was on fuel and some of those conflicting strategies? Or did none of that matter to you guys? And you guys made a decision and you just stuck with that and kind of just waited to see if you guys made the right call at the end of the day?
Yeah, I made the call while we were running that even if we short pit with a yellow flag, that the rest of the people who stay out weren't going to make it on fuel because you can't save that much under yellow. So we made the call to come in and take it there. So if the yellow did come out, that we were still gonna end up front anyway because people still had to come in. It was a hard call to make, but we had to do it.
Yeah, and it works out at the end of the day. So you make a call and it doesn't work out, you can sit there and second guess yourself. I would argue you guys are walking away with the hardware. It worked perfect by design. So you guys get a win. Obviously, it's a big step because you lock yourselves into the playoffs. 4 different races now, 4 different winners. So it'll be a little bit of a comfortable 9 weeks for you guys to be able to play around with things. And I think, quite honestly, still try to adjust to this new format. How has it been for you and the guys at the team trying to adjust to this? And you mentioned it's affected how you guys have been calling strategies, and just kind of talk us through how that has kind of changed how you have to approach these races on Friday nights, because it's quite a difference. We've always seen season to season a couple of changes here, but not only did we go from laps to time, but there's a lot less fuel in the car, and there's a lot that's changed. I think one of the biggest differences from one season to another that this series has ever seen.
Yeah, it was easy when we used to do laps because you could just take the amount of fuel that you have, times it by 2, add a lap, and that's basically like the safe bet of what your fuel run will be. But we got the first taste of the time and the dual race, and it was literally like pulling your hair out during the race trying to figure out what to do. But slowly but surely, every race that we're doing it, we're starting to figure out at what point you should pit and how long you can push things. So it's it's still a work in progress, but pretty much everybody is going to start figuring out soon where you'll see it more organized coming down pit road eventually.
You guys are able to get out on top of things and you get a win early in the season. So what does that mean for you for the next 9 weeks?
That means pretty much I can do what I want, relax, and try to help Rodney get a win for himself to lock him in. So pretty much going to be racing for other people out there, especially ones that helped me tonight. So I'll be more worried about them getting wins than putting myself in position for one.
Well, he was definitely up in that one late. You guys are able to get in front and get the checker to fly. Your 4th career win with the Superspeedway Cup Series. Who makes it happen for you?
First, I got to shout out to my wife. It actually 12 years ago today we first started dating, so she wanted to remind me of that. My dad for always watching, Rodney for teaming up with me, Mark, Chubbs, Seth for always helping me. I apologize to them after the race because I don't like driving like that, but it's still they told me not to apologize, but I still feel like I have to. I don't like driving like that, but shout out for you guys for the broadcast, Rod for putting on the league, and I'll see you guys next week.
It's all means to an end, and you guys are going to be racing to 4A championship in a couple of months' time. I'm sure that you would like to obviously help the 7 car out, and then maybe see if you guys can stack up the wins, help out those points come the playoffs. So we'll let you get out of here, Chris. Congratulations once again on the win. Best of luck, I guess, to you and the team going forward. But most importantly, you're in the playoffs. That's the biggest thing. So a tip of the cap to you for getting that out of the way early, and excited to see what you guys can do for the rest of the year.
All right, thanks, Evan.
Chris Bassini gets the win here tonight from Talladega Superspeedway. Last time he won was at Daytona earlier this year in March, back one season ago. The driver who was oh so close, Cisco, and you were talking about the paint scheme on the 88, gets a good finish to come home in second place tonight, but only by 2/100ths of a second missed out for the win, and that's Mark Jorgensen Jr. who comes home in second.
And I've caught up with Mr. Mark Jorgensen Jr. down here on pit road. And Mark, well, first off, you're going to have to buff out the left rear after that one because that was some amazing racing. Talk us through it, man. How was it out there?
Oh, it was pretty fun. Kind of had some boring stretches, single file. Nobody wanted to do nothing in the outside, obviously, because if you jumped up there, you just fall back to the back. But yeah, there was quite a bit of us working in team speak together. That last fuel stop, and Chris come up with a fuel calculation of how many gallons to take on that pit stop, and that's what we did, and obviously it worked out. And had Seth up there, kind of helping us all out, and it was fun just to battle. Chris, Seth, Andrew was up there. I mean, I wasn't even paying attention to my relative. I didn't even know that Rodney was a lap down. And, I definitely thought that he was for position, but, just us up there just battling real hard. I mean, Seth was beating that left rear quarter panel up on my car. I guess the body guy's going to have a little bit of work to do at the shop this week.
Well, I will say, Mark, this for you, a little bit of a confidence booster. You haven't gotten the win yet. Still plenty of time to go. You came off a really good season last year. Before then, a little bit of struggle. Does this help the mind out, knowing you're going to be out front for a while to come here?
Oh, Cisco, the 88 car going to be up at the front. It's just a matter of if he's going to get wrecked or not. But yeah, the first few races have kind of sucked. I mean, this is the first interview that I've had with y'all this season, so that's pretty cool. I always look forward to doing that. But man, I just feel like I probably should have won every single race so far this season. But like I said, just been getting wrecked. My doing, whoever's doing, whatever. But yeah, I was glad to come out here and put on a show. And man, just a half a car short, man, just a half a car, and I would have been talking to Evan.
Half a car nonetheless, but it's a very good-looking car out there. Sponsor shout-outs. Who gets it done for you in the iRacing Live LSRTV Chevrolet?
Oh, yeah. We're going to see to Rod Flatt for putting this on. I know he goes through a lot with us, on Facebook and in the race and all that kind of good stuff. But, it's all for good fun. I definitely like running in here every Friday night. Y'all, LSRTV for the broadcast, the broadcasters in the booth, and obviously, Cisco, what you do behind the scenes. Another shout out to you, Cisco, because you're right. That 88 LSRTV, whatever car, looked badass. I mean, it was awesome. I'm glad that I gave it a good run. I just wish that I I could put it in Victory Lane, man. I would like to put a LSRTV car in Victory Lane. That'd be pretty cool to do in this series. But other than that, I know I got my fans watching. Big shout out to them to staying loyal, tuning in every Friday night watching. I really do hope that they get to see a pretty good show that we get to put on. Want to give another big shout out to my cousin, Michael Grabham. I'm sure he's watching. His son, Paxton. I'm sure they're loving it. We're going to get that 88 to Victory Lane. I promise y'all guys.
Well, it'd be pretty awesome to see a Junior back in Victory Lane. And Mark, I know, just on the side note, I know you want to get it done one last time this season as far as in parity to the actual NASCAR season, to see a Junior back in Victory Lane. I'm sure you'd like to see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, man, speaking of that, it's been this season just been difficult, just getting irritated watching the real life stuff, following Junior, this, that, and the other. But, I think his best shot is going to be Talladega. Obviously I'd like to see him win to advance himself to the chase, to be able to go for the championship. But the way that car has been running all season, I would hate for him to take up a spot knowing that he's probably not going to be able to get the job done and hoist that trophy. But I just want him to win one more race for his final season. Talladega, Texas Motor Speedway. I really don't care, but it would be cool to see him win at Talladega though, before he hangs up the helmet.
I'll tell you what, I think regardless of how Mr. Earnhardt Jr. is going to make it happen, I think we'll be seeing a Junior in Victory Lane in this series for years to come, I get the feeling. So, Mark, congrats, and hey, we'll see you next week.
Oh, I appreciate it, Cisco. Thanks again.
Well, that's Mark Jorgensen Jr. He finishes second, and now I'm going to catch up. Well, actually, no, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Mr. Daniel Eberhardt because he's caught up with the guy who finished third. That's Seth the Merchant in that Coca-Cola car.
Yeah, I'm down here on pit road with Seth the Merchant in the 57 Chevrolet SS. Seth, you had to deal with flipping and wrecking in the tri-oval. You had to go down to the apron down the back straightaway to dodge a couple wrecks. And you come home third, having to deal with the 7 car, with lap traffic. What was all going on in this race for the ups and downs that you had to overcome to get to third spot?
Very interesting. Got unlucky there and got involved in that wreck about halfway through the race. And then I knew with how many cars there were in the field, I'd have to play strategy to get back up front. And I did that and sacrificed some stage points and pitted early. Like 5 laps before the stage ended, and was able to make it so I had enough fuel to hopefully get lucky once they all pit at the stage and get a caution and then be back on the same cycle as everybody. And it worked out, and then worked my way up to the lead there and was working with Mark and Chris, and we planned on pitting together and pretty much just rode in line until probably about last 6-7 laps, and then that was a hell of a race. Probably we almost wrecked like 3 in the last 2 or 3 laps. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy at the end, and y'all put on a heck of a show out there. Having the 7 car in front of you, Rodney Wofford, was it hard to get around him? Was it hard to make a move? Because at some points it looked like you were clear, or were you just trying to stay behind him because you thought his line was going to be the best line to go with?
I was kind of hoping that I could stay ahead of Mark there when me and him were still the lead cars on the inside, but I just used up a little too much of my temps and overheated, and I wasn't able to cool it down in time for Mark and them to get by me. And then once they did, it just got way worse because I had so many more cars in front of me that the car just wouldn't cool down. And then I just had to pretty much wait for a hole to get back up in line and then try to work my way back up to the front.
So with the time, instead of having laps to count down, you have a time countdown. Does it make it really interesting out there, like with fuel strategy and everything?
Yeah, because if you get a caution instead of laps, a caution in the timed race takes out a lot more of the race. You could probably do 40 minutes of the race on one pit stop if you got like one caution, because it would take out like 10 minutes of the time. Other than that, that's like really the only difference.
Well, after bringing this thing home third, Seth, we know that you don't do it by yourself. Who do you have to thank out there?
Just P Money Designs for painting the cars and Rod for putting on the league.
And that's Seth the Merchant, driver of the 57 Chevy SS. And Evan, it was eventful. The time was running out. Drivers' tempers were flaring tonight. There was blocking. there was 3 and 4 wide racing. There ain't much you could ask for on a Friday night lights show.
Yeah, the only thing that we were missing until the end there was the green flag pit stop, and we saw that, and some drivers came down pit road, only took 3.5 gallons. Some drivers took 5. That separated some of the drivers out of the pit lane. That was big, and that was maybe one of the factoring points late in this race that we could have never expected based on, how the first 3 quarters of this thing shook out. But at the end of the night, Chris Pasiti gets the win. He gets the $20 for the I-5 bonus, and Cisco, he adds himself to the updated playoff grid that includes Monsivice, Chaburko, and Oltmans as the drivers into the playoffs based on wins. And then after tonight, Spencer Preet, Rodney Watford, Harry Tiller, Daniel Holloway, Rod Flagg, Glenn Hendrick, Mark Jorgensen Jr., Ray Rittenauer, and Alex Halladar would be the drivers in based on points. The difference between 12th and 13th at a final transfer spot is only 2 points, though, between Hallinar and Champion, and we know that the points-paying positions into the chase are going to continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller as the season goes on. 4 weeks now complete. We're a month into the season. It's going to be difficult to really say. We're just getting this thing kicked off. We're starting to head to the bulk at the middle of this year.
Yeah, we are. And just to add to that a little bit, Paul Servant tied with Gary Champion. So you got 2 guys right on the outside of the cusp of the cut line trying to make it in. But, well, if you want to tune in, you're just going to have to tune in next week to find out what happens, who will survive Daytona once again. And that's going to be a whole lot of fun, Evan, and I'm looking forward to it.
Next week is when you get to catch us next time right here on LSRTV and iRacing Live, because this does it for us for this week. You can make sure that you catch us on iRacing Live this upcoming Monday. We've got the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series. We've got Myrtle Beach. We've got Superspeedway Cup. We've got all that good stuff. You can make sure you never miss a broadcast by going onto our website at www.livesimracing.com. There you'll find an extended broadcast schedule so you can make sure you're on top of things. But to be extra sure, and if you want to keep up to date with LSRTV and all the leagues that we follow, keep up to date with us on the social medias. That'll be Twitter at LSRTV and on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official for all of that information. So that does it here tonight from Talladega. On behalf of the entire team at Live Sim Racing LLC, for Daniel Lai and everybody else who up here topside week in, week out, and night in and night out who makes this show run. And of course, for the team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Daniel Eberhardt, and for Cisco Scaramuso, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Chris Pasiti. He will race in the playoffs in a couple of months' time. We'll see if we can go 5 different winners in 5 different races. The next time we're out is next Friday, right here, same time, same place, as the Superspeedway Cup Series continues at LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Until then, good night.